You wake before the village roosters. The air in your room is cool, damp, with the kind of heaviness that makes the shutters cling to their hinges when you push them open. You don't rush. There is no point in rushing, because the village will rise in its own uneven rhythm whether you are already moving or not. The straw mattress crackles faintly as you lift yourself from it, joints clicking in their familiar quiet protest. You sit for a while on the edge of the bed, letting your feet rest on the uneven wooden planks of the floor. The boards are cold and faintly gritty with dust. The first thing you notice is smell, as always. Your house smells not like a home, but like a cupboard of earth and herbs. Dried bundles of sage and rosemary hang crooked from the rafters. The faint tang of iron lingers from the basin, rinsed only yesterday after another birth. Old wood, smoke from the hearth, the sour undertone of goat's milk, all of it rests around you in layers, unbothered by the idea of freshness. You stretch your hands slowly, inspecting the faint cracks at your knuckles, the fine brown stains around your nails that even scrubbing won't loosen. The night was short, as most nights are. You know better than to measure time by sleep. Time is counted by who knocks at your door, by how many cloths are stained, by which names must be remembered and which must be forgotten. Your shutters creak outward, letting in the kind of faint dawn that is more grey than gold. The sky is a long, low sheet of colour, as if someone pressed a wet brush across parchment. The village below stirs, but only faintly. A dog barks once, then falls silent. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey shifts its hooves against stone. The air outside smells of damp earth, manure, and smoke that never quite died overnight. You breathe it in, and it settles the way heavy bread settles in your stomach, slow, filling, not altogether pleasant. You stand, moving with the kind of economy that comes from habit. You don't bother with haste, because there is no surprise in your life. There is only the same sequence of gestures, morning after morning. You fold your blanket with a sharp snap and tuck it at the bed's end. You slip into your woolen dress, coarse but familiar, the edges softened by years of washing. It smells faintly of smoke and time, because everything you own smells faintly of smoke and time. At the small table, there is the basket. It waits for you as if it has been waiting all night, and in truth it has. You glance at it, though you won't pack it yet. That will come next. For now, you only sit near it, running one finger along the rough handle, letting the groove bite faintly into your skin. On the hearth, a clay pot rests with a heel of yesterday's bread inside it. You pull it out, snapping it with your teeth. It is dry, tasteless, but it holds your jaw steady. Beside it, a small cup with the film of goat's milk across its rim. You swallow it in 2 gulps. It is sour as always, but it steadies you the way the first step onto a worn path steadies your stride. Your room is not silent, though at first it seems so. Listen long enough, and you notice the faint hiss of air squeezing between the shutters. You hear the restless twitch of mice behind the wall, the far-off shuffle of a neighbour's broom. The sounds do not demand your attention, but they insist on existing, and you acknowledge them with the small nod of someone who has stopped wondering when silence might ever be whole. The roosters still sleep. They always do, at this hour. Their delay is your measure of time, a small, smug comfort. You are ahead of them, as always. You wonder idly if they notice. You wonder if anyone does. You move to the window again, resting your elbows on the sill. The wood is rough and cold. The view is plain. Mud paths, sagging roofs, chimney smoke no thicker than thread. The world outside does not sparkle, does not dazzle, and you prefer it that way. You trace the crooked line of fences with your eyes, fences that hold in goats and chickens, though not always successfully. You watch a figure move slow and stooped, probably a man checking his animals before the light comes proper. Your breath fogs faintly on the wood, and you wipe it with your sleeve. It leaves a darker streak on the wool, a stain that will join the others without notice. You sigh, the kind of sigh that neither complains nor relieves, but simply marks the moment. Your day has not yet begun, not properly, but already you carry the weight of it. You know the knocks will come, the whispers will follow, the cloths will stain, and the basket will empty. You know too much, and you know it before the sun even rises, That is the true beginning every day, the remembering that you know what others would rather forget. And so you stand, the cold floor pressing into the soles of your feet, the smell of herbs thick in your lungs, the air heavy with dawn not yet broken by birds. The roosters still sleep, you do not. You prepare your midwife's basket. It sits where it always does, by the table leg half open, smelling faintly of linen and iron. The handle is rough and curved to the shape of your grip. You kneel beside it, not hurriedly, not with any sense of urgency, just with the same quiet rhythm as every morning, as if the basket and your hands are repeating a small ritual together. The first thing you place inside is cloth, because there is always cloth. You fold strips of linen, some freshly washed, some already marked faintly with the ghosts of stains. They never come out fully, no matter how hard you scrub or boil. You run your fingertips along the weave, noting how thin the fabric has grown after so many uses. Each strip feels like a small memory of past nights, past women, past cries of pain followed by cries of life. You stack them carefully, because the basket must never feel disorderly. Next comes the bundle of herbs, wrapped with twine. You choose sprigs of rosemary, sage, and yarrow. The scent rises when you untie them briefly, sharp and earthy, cutting through the stale smoke of the room. You tuck them back in, binding them close. Their smell clings to your hands, strong enough that you will carry it into whichever house you enter. Some women say the herbs are for luck, others whisper that they are for cleansing, and you nod at both. You never argue with either story. You place the knife next, the small one with the worn handle, more wood than blade at this point. It has cut more cords than bread, though the gesture feels the same either way. Its weight is familiar, steady. You polish it once across your sleeve, though there is nothing on it, and slip it into its cloth cover. You always set it deep into the basket, as if tucking away a quiet truth that does not belong in plain view. There is a jar, clay, rough around the rim. Inside it are oils mixed last week, olive and chamomile, thick and faintly yellow. You swirl it gently, watching the surface shift, catching light from the window. It smells faintly sweet, though the sweetness carries the stale undertone of clay. You set it into a corner of the basket where it will not spill. You add the pestle and mortar, small, chipped at the edges. You do not always need it, but it is better to have it, because you never know which whispers might become requests. Some ask for teas, some for poultices, some for things better not named too loudly. You say nothing. You grind, you stir, you hand over what they ask for, and you listen to what they do not ask. At the very bottom you lay a folded shawl, because sometimes you must drape it over a woman's shoulders, and sometimes you must cover a basin. The wool is coarse, heavy, faintly damp from the morning air. You smooth it flat with the heel of your hand, though it never lies completely straight. When the basket is full, you sit back on your heels and study it. The sight is always the same, yet never without weight. You know each item will be used, not in theory, but in certainty. Cloth will stain, herbs will burn or boil, knives will cut, jars will empty. It is not a question of if, only of when. Your hands linger over the handle, testing its roughness again, letting the grooves press into your skin. The basket is not heavy yet, but it always feels heavier once you step out the door. The weight is not only the objects, it is also what those objects will witness. You think about this every morning, but only briefly, and then you think about it no more. From the window, the light has shifted. The grey of dawn begins to slip into something paler, a hint of yellow seeping into the horizon. A rooster finally clears its throat once, twice, before another answers from farther away. Their cries overlap, stretched and uneven, breaking the silence that had belonged to you. You look down at the basket again, quiet, steady. The roosters are late, as usual. You are not. Your room smells strongly of herbs now, as if the basket itself has declared its readiness. You breathe it in slowly, filling your chest, letting the air sit heavy inside you. You stand, lifting the basket, feeling its weight settle into your arm. It is not yet burdensome, but it is familiar, like a child clinging to your hip. You carry it as you have carried it every day, without ceremony, without question. The day waits for you. The basket is ready, and so are you. bread and goat's milk before sunrise. The meal is never more than this, and you never expect more. You sit at the table with the basket close to your feet, the wooden surface marked with scratches from knives, cups, and elbows that came long before this morning. The loaf is yesterday's, hard at the edges, its crust flaking when you press a thumb against it. You break it, not neatly, but with the kind of slow, tearing motion that sends crumbs scattering across the table. They stay there. You don't bother brushing them away. You chew without hurry. Each bite is dense, the kind of chew that makes you shift your jaw more than you'd prefer. The flavor is little more than flour and smoke, but it is steady, and that is enough. The bread is cold, as if it has been waiting through the night to remind you that comfort is not part of breakfast. It fills you in the way a stone fills a pocket weight without delight. Beside it is the clay cup, rim rough, milk inside still faintly warm from when you pulled it earlier from the goat. A pale film clings to the surface, thin as wax, breaking when you tilt the cup. You drink 2 swallows, then a third. The taste is sharp, sour, the kind that clings to the back of your tongue and reminds you of the animal from which it came. It leaves your mouth coated, faintly greasy, but it steadies your stomach. You breathe out slowly afterward, the sourness lingering in your nose. The house is still dim, light creeping in only as a pale smear through the shutters. You eat in rhythm with the faint outside sounds. The first cartwheel dragging over the stones, the cough of a man stirring his fire, the hollow beat of a hen hopping from her perch. Each sound meets your ear with the same quiet weight as the bread between your teeth. You tear another piece, smaller this time, rolling it between your fingers before pressing it to your lips. The texture roughs your tongue, dry enough that you take another sip of milk to soften it. The two mix in your mouth, and for a moment the sourness overtakes the bland, creating something almost like balance. Almost, but not quite. You sit with your elbows on the table, cup resting against your palm. The wood is cold, faintly sticky in one corner where something spilled days ago. Your eyes trace the grain of the planks, dark lines curving like dried rivers. The bread lies in its broken form beside you, already enough for today, though you know you will finish it later, bit by bit, when the hours stretch long. The smell of the meal is faint but constant, bread with its dry dusty scent, milk with its sour tang. It mixes with the lingering herbs in the air, with the faint iron memory of the basin, with the stale smoke folded into your walls. You breathe all of it together, not noticing where one ends and the other begins. The meal is not pleasure, it is not comfort, it is only preparation. The way the basket is preparation, the way rising before the roosters is preparation. You eat because you must, not because you wish to. The bite, the swallow, the sip each is a step no different from folding cloth or tying herbs. Outside, the light has shifted again, a little stronger, though not yet full. You can see it in the thin line along the floorboards near the door, stretching, lengthening, turning from grey to pale gold. The village will wake soon, and with it the knocks, the whispers, the cries. You drink the last of the milk. The bottom of the cup is rough against your lips, the clay tasting faintly of earth. You set it down, the hollow thud echoing in your small room. The bread, broken, waits to be wrapped again in its cloth. You cover it, fold it, set it aside. The action slow, deliberate, without thought. The roosters outside are louder now. You hear one close, one far. Their cries overlap, scratchy, uneven, reminding you that morning has arrived whether you are ready or not. But you are ready. You always are. The bread sits heavy in your stomach. The milk still lingers on your tongue, and the day waits, as it always does. Walking through narrow dirt lanes, you step outside with the basket hooked against your arm, its weight familiar, its rhythm matched to your stride. The door closes behind you with a hollow thud, wood against wood, not quite straight on its hinge. The air greets you at once, damp, cool, carrying the mixed scents of earth, smoke, and manure. You breathe it in through your nose, slow, letting it settle into your chest. The path beneath your feet is packed dirt, still soft from the night's dew. It clings faintly to your shoes, sticking in clumps that will harden by midday. The lane stretches crooked, uneven, bending past houses that lean a little too far into the road. Their roofs sag, straw patched with mud, some thatched more carefully than others. You see smoke threading from chimneys, thin at first, but thickening as more fires take to their morning work. The village stirs around you in fragments. A cart creaks somewhere behind a fence. A dog scratches at a door. A hen flutters down from a roof with a small clatter of wings and feet. You pass it without slowing, the bird scurrying out of your way as if it knows better than to demand space from you. Fences line the path, some sturdy, some tilting, all built from wood that remembers too many seasons of rain. Between the slats, goats nose through for grass, their breath puffing small clouds in the morning chill. A cow lows from farther down, the sound flat and heavy in the damp air. The smell changes as you walk. Near one door, it is bread baking yeasty, warm, promising. Near another, it is dung, strong enough to wrinkle the nose. Then smoke, sharp and lingering, carried on the slow drift of air. Each step brings a new scent, none of them clean, all of them steady reminders that the village lives in layers. You pass houses where shutters remain closed, families still tangled in sleep. Others already have doors open, children tugging at skirts, mothers calling names. Their voices blur together into the low hum of beginning. You keep your eyes forward, basket steady, though you hear every word. Snatches of complaint, fragments of gossip, laughter that always has a bite to it. The ground is uneven, a patch of mud here, a stone jutting there. You know where to step without looking. Your body remembers the path better than your mind. You avoid puddles automatically, shifting weight without thought, letting the basket balance itself with the tilt of your arm. The rhythm is so practiced it feels less like walking and more like a slow, unbroken sway. A boy runs past, bare feet splashing in mud, his hair sticking in damp points. He glances at you once, wide-eyed, then looks away quickly. Children rarely linger near you. They know what you carry, even if they don't understand why. They can sense the heaviness of your steps, the weight of what your basket means. A rooster struts across the lane ahead of you, chest puffed, feathers dulled by the dim light. It calls, loud and sharp, as if claiming victory for being late to rise. You step past it, not bothering to look, and its crow cuts short as it scuttles aside. At the far end of the lane, the church bell stirs. Not a full peal, not yet just the low single toll that warns of the hour. The sound rolls across the houses, through the fences, into the mud. It lingers in your chest, vibrating faintly, then fades. You listen without reacting. The bell rings often, for hours, for births, for deaths. For you, it is only another sound of morning. The sky above lightens, thin streaks of pale yellow pressing into the grey. The clouds look low, damp enough to threaten rain, though not yet decided. You walk on, basket pressing into your arm, shoes collecting mud, breath steady. Each house you pass, each fence, each smell, none of it surprises you. It is the same path, the same lane, the same morning, and you walk it as you always do, without pause, without hurry. The village is not fully awake, but it is no longer asleep. You are the same. Somewhere, a door creaks open behind you. Somewhere else, a child begins to cry. You walk on, steady, your basket heavy, your eyes on the next bend of the lane. The first knock of the day. You hear it before you see the house, a quick rapping against wood, urgent but not panicked. It is not unusual. Few call you when the sun is already high. Most come at this hour while the village still yawns, while the air is still damp, while the world feels half asleep. You follow the sound, your steps slow, until you find the doorway. The house is small, its roof sagging lower than its neighbours, its shutters uneven, one hanging crooked. The woman's husband waits outside, shifting from foot to foot. His boots are muddy, his face pale with worry. He nods at you, not speaking at first, because words feel clumsy in such moments. Then he whispers your name, as if saying it aloud might bring calm. You nod in return, neither warm nor cold, simply acknowledging what you already know. The knock was enough. You step inside, ducking beneath the low beam. The air is close, warmer than outside, thick with the smell of smoke, sweat, and damp straw. Shadows gather in the corners, the only light coming from a single tallow candle perched on a stool. The woman lies on a bed near the hearth, her hair stuck to her forehead, her breaths uneven. A basin of water sits beside her, steam rising faintly, though the fire beneath it has already gone weak. The room is quiet, though not truly. You hear her breathing, harsh and low. You hear the shuffle of cloth as her sister shifts nearby. You hear the faint crackle of the fire, the creak of the bed each time she moves. You hear everything, and yet you move as if there is nothing but silence. You set your basket down, the thud softened by the earth-packed floor. Your hands work without hurry. You open the lid, take out cloth, herbs, the knife, the jar. You place them where they will be needed. In reach, in order, each movement slow but certain. You do not need to look at them. Your fingers know the weight of each item, the shape, the exact space it requires. The woman groans, low and steady, clutching the edge of the bed. Her eyes close tight, her lips pressed thin. You sit beside her, not touching yet, only letting her know you are there. The room smells heavier now, sweat sharp, fire smoky, the faint sweetness of chamomile oil rising as you uncork the jar. You dip your fingers in and rub it on your palms, warming it, letting the scent spread. You place your hand on her arm, gently. Your voice is soft, steady, barely more than breath. You tell her she is not alone, though you do not use those words exactly. You use smaller words, older ones, words that carry rhythm more than meaning. She listens, not with her ears, but with the way her breathing slows, the way her hand loosens its grip. The husband hovers in the corner, wringing his hands, stepping forward and back. You ignore him. He is there, but he is not part of this. He will be told later that his part was to wait, and he will nod, though he already knows. The sister passes you cloth, water, whatever you need, silently, her eyes fixed on her own hands rather than the bed. The knock of the morning has brought you here, into this dim room, into this breath-heavy air. It is always the same, and always different. The house may change, the faces may change, but the sound of the knock never does. It is the same hollow urgency on wood, carrying through lanes and fences, reaching you before the roosters have finished their crowing. It is the same weight placed into your basket, into your hands, into your silence. You sit straighter, preparing. The woman shifts, groaning again, pulling the blanket tight around her shoulders. You reach for the cloths, laying them out, smooth and white, though they will not remain so. Your voice remains even, your movements slow. The candle flickers, the basin steams, the bed creaks. The day has truly begun. Heat, breath, and whispered encouragements. You take your place at the side of the bed, the candle throwing a weak ring of light that wobbles with the woman's ribs. The hearth gives more glow than warmth, yet the room is hot human heat, fire heat, the heat of cloth and work. The air tastes of tallow, wool, and the faint bitter of boiled herbs. You speak low, not because anyone is listening for secrets, though there are always secrets, but because quiet makes shape for breath. You guide her to follow yours. In through the nose, hold a little, let it leave as if a rope was sliding through your fist. You do not count. Numbers do not help here. You give rhythm instead, a tide that arrives and withdraws without hurry. Her hand claws the mattress edge. You peel her fingers loose and replace the edge with your own hand, dry and steady. Here, you say, or perhaps you only place your palm where she can feel its weight. Your hand is a hinge. The rest may swing around it without coming apart. The sister wrings a cloth in the basin. The water has cooled. You nod toward the hearth, and she drags the pot nearer, feeding the fire with 2 thin sticks. Smoke steps out, reminding the room who commands it. You lay fresh linen across the mother's brow. The cloth drinks the heat and warms in a breath. You replace it. Again and again. It is simply what a morning is. Between pains, you coax small sips of water into her mouth. Some spills. It travels its own path to the pillow. You do not chide. Water has its ideas, and so do tears. Neither asks permission. When the next wave grips her, you lean closer. Breathe with me. You whisper, or perhaps you only breathe and let her borrow it. Her jaw tightens, then softens. You let your voice become a tunnel for breath to travel, narrow enough to guide it, wide enough not to scrape. You have carried many through such a tunnel. You know where it narrows. The husband shifts in the corner. You do not turn your head. You lift one finger the smallest amount, and he understands that his task is to continue breathing from the shadows, and to be useful later when water must be fetched. You oil your hands, rubbing them until your palms shine in the light. Chamomile loosens its sweetness into the room, curling around the rougher smells until the whole place breathes easier. You rest your oiled hand on the hardening curve, not pressing, not pushing, only listening with your skin. Muscles gather like rope drawn through a pulley. Time lengthens. You speak to the rope, not to the woman. It seems to understand. Footsteps pass outside the door and then move on. The house returns to its small symphony. Fire tick, water hush, fabric shiver, breath, breath, breath. You keep your voice level, straight as a reed. She leans into the sound because level things help when the world tilts. You measure progress by the change in her eyes. At first, the pain held them bright and scattered. Now each wave is work that returns a coin as it goes. You keep such arithmetic to yourself. The sister's hands tremble with the cloth. You shift your gaze and her hands grow still. The cloth returns to the brow. You listen for the low moan behind the higher sounds. When you hear it, you know the body is gathering itself toward the necessary. Your words shorten, fewer leaves on the branch, so the wind can pass through. Good, you murmur. Let it go. The syllables stretch like warm wax. She seems to loosen with them. You glance at the knife where it waits, quiet in its cloth. Fresh linen sits nearer. Herbs hang heavy above, giving themselves to the heat. You tell yourself, as you always do, that this is just a morning, just a room, just a woman, just a child, arriving by the most ordinary route that ever astonished anyone. You keep your mouth from smiling. Another pain rises and holds. You breathe slower than the room and ask the room to follow. The mother does. She meets the wave with a long, even exhale that leaves her ribs empty and her shoulders loose. You promise nothing. You keep the floor beneath her steady, the way a low table holds a bowl while someone stirs. You set the blanket straight. You oil your hands again. You ease the slow turning with the calm of a potter who has fixed 1,000 rims and sees one more that needs exactly the same touch. You do not hurry. Haste belongs to markets and gossip. This work answers to patience. When fear pricks, because it does, you let your voice grow softer, not louder. Softness makes a hollow where fear can sit without spilling. You tell her she is doing what every woman does, which is true, and what only she can do, which is also true. You place truth beside truth until they form a small bench. She sits on it. The wave passes. Another comes. The bench remains. The husband asks how long. You do not answer him. You look at the mother instead and say, "You are steady." You offer the word like a cup of water. She drinks from it, and some of it spills, and that is fine. Time becomes the slow stirring of the pot. The candle lowers itself grain by grain. The hearth swallows a stick and asks for another. You measure nothing by bells. You measure by the way breath changes shape, by the way her voice lowers, by the way her hands stop fighting the bed and learn to hold it as a friend. You lean until she can feel your breath on her temple. "Here," you whisper, which means everything and nothing. The next wave climbs. She meets it, not beautifully, not bravely, but adequately, which is the most honest sort of courage you know. Your hands listen. Your voice keeps the hallway open. The body does the rest, as bodies have always done. Outside, the village moves toward midday without asking your leave. Inside, the room holds fast close, damp, ordinary. You do not think about outcomes, you think about breath, you think about cloth, you think about the small, steady things that carry larger things across. You stay, hinge, and bench, and low table, while the necessary work continues. The baby arrives before the sun climbs. The room feels smaller in this moment, as if the walls have leaned closer to witness. The mother's face is slick with sweat. her lips pressed hard as though to bite back sound, yet the sound comes anyway, deep, breaking, pulled from the bone. You do not hush it. The cry is part of the work, as natural as the air itself. Your hands are steady, oiled, ready. They know the shape of what is coming, though each time has its own rhythm, its own stubborn edge. You wait, not rushing, letting the body's insistence declare itself. The basin of water steams faintly beside you, linen folded, knife waiting in its cloth, herbs hanging above like patient onlookers. Then, sudden but not surprising, the child slips into your palms. The weight is small, slick, warm, heavy, with the strange softness that only belongs to newness. The cry bursts out raw and high, cutting through the thick air like the first rooster's call. It is not delicate, not sweet. It is sharp, insistent, as though demanding its place before the morning sun has even broken. The mother collapses against the bedding, eyes closed, chest heaving, hair clinging to her damp temples. Her body sags with relief, exhaustion, emptiness. You do not speak much, only a few low words, meant more as sound than sense. The sister brings another cloth, her hands shaking as she offers it. You take it, wrap the small body, blot away the mess with practiced slowness. The linen soaks quickly, as it always does. You replace it with another. The husband steps forward, but not too close. His breath catches when he hears the cry. His eyes shine in the flicker of candle and hearth. He shifts his weight as though to reach out. But he looks to you first. You give a small nod, granting permission he did not realize he needed. The child squirms in the crook of your arm, fists clenching and unclenching as if already grasping at the world. The skin is red, the hair damp, the eyes screwed shut against the dim light. You wipe gently, each motion unhurried, letting the cries echo. The cries are good. They fill the house, push back the silence, remind everyone present that breath has been exchanged for breath. Steam rises from the basin as you wash your hands. The water is clouded, but it does not matter. You dry them on linen, your motions exact, measured, repeating the same steps you have repeated too many times to count. Then you reach for the knife, unwrapping its cloth, laying it beside you. The cord is pale, thick, pulsing faintly with what is nearly finished. You tie it with practiced hands, cut it with one swift slice, and listen as the child's cry sharpens at the separation. The sound is not sad, it is defiant, as if announcing that independence has already begun. The mother opens her eyes. They are heavy, half-lidded, but they find the bundle in your arms. She reaches weakly, and you lower the child to her. The room smells of sweat, milk not yet formed, iron from the basin, smoke curling lazy from the hearth. She holds her child against her chest, the cry muffling, shifting into small, uneven breaths. Her lips part, no words forming, just a sound somewhere between relief and disbelief. The sister wipes the mother's brow, tears in her own eyes though she tries to hide them. The husband takes one step nearer, still hesitant, as though the space between him and the bed is a border he must cross carefully. You step back slightly, letting them fill the moment, though you never leave fully. Your presence remains, heavy as the herbs above, steady as the basket, by your side. The candle guttered low, wax dripping down its side in sluggish bead. Morning light presses faintly at the shutter slats, thin beams cutting across the smoky air. The child whimpers softly now, rooting against the mother's chest. The house, once filled with groans and sharp cries, grows quiet, save for the small sounds of new breath, the rustle of cloth, the crackle of the fire. You wash the knife, dry it, return it to its cloth. You gather the soiled linens, setting them aside in a neat pile, though they smell strongly of iron and salt. You add more wood to the fire, letting the warmth hold steady. The room feels calmer now, though beneath it lingers exhaustion, the kind that will seep into everyone present once the shock of the cry has fully faded. Outside, a rooster calls again, this time joined by others. Their voices overlap in sharp, uneven chords. The sky has begun to pale, the village stretching itself awake. You glance toward the shuttered window, then back at the mother and child, both quiet now, both breathing in fragile rhythm. The baby arrived before the sun climbed. Another cry claimed before light, another secret folded into your hands. You nod once to yourself, not in pride, not in joy, only in acknowledgement. The work is done for now. The day has only begun. Whispers between the curtains. The mother lies back against her bedding, her child pressed to her chest, her breath shallow but steady now. The room is dim still, though a thread of daylight sneaks between the shutters, falling across the damp floor. The air is heavy with smells that cling iron, sweat, smoke, milk not yet formed. The basin sits clouded, the pile of linens is damp and waiting, the knife sleeps again in its cloth. The sister pulls a worn curtain across the corner of the bed, as if thin fabric could protect against eyes or ears. It sways faintly in the draught from the shutters. Behind it, the new mother sighs, murmuring small sounds meant only for her child. In front of it, the house rearranges itself. Husband pacing a few steps, sister wringing another cloth, fire burning low. The whispers come then, soft, careful, not meant for you though they cannot help but reach your ears. The sister leans close to the husband, her voice barely more than breath. You do not turn your head, but the air carries sound as faithfully as it carries smoke. Words about timing, about shame, about who might notice. The baby's hair, the baby's eyes. You hear it all, though they think the curtain hides more than it does. You keep your face plain, your hands busy, you fold another strip of cloth, smooth it on your knee, stack it neatly on the pile, you move with the slowness of someone deaf to whispers. But your ears, as always, collect everything. The tone of the sister's voice quick, anxious, threaded with guilt. The husband's replies short, flat, edged with worry. Not joy, not pride, not the full relief a father usually spills in these first moments. Only guardedness, calculation, and a low rhythm of fear. The child stirs behind the curtain, whimpering softly. The mother hums, her voice weak but sweet, unaware or unwilling to hear what is being said beyond the fabric. Her hum smooths over the sharp edges of their whispers, though only for herself. For you, the two sounds tangle, the lullaby and the secrecy, layered like smoke on smoke. You look toward the shutter, light growing stronger, striping the wall with thin bands of pale gold. The day outside does not pause for these secrets. Chickens scratch in the dust, neighbors call out to one another, feet slap against mud. But inside, the house tightens around the hushed exchange. You hear the word neighbor, you hear resemble, you hear explain, you hear silence follow, then the sister's sigh, then the husband's low mutter. Their voices rise only the smallest amount, but even that feels too loud in this room, so close to the woman who lies just a breath away, humming to her newborn. You busy your hands again. You tip the basin to empty half its water into a jar, the motion loud enough to cover some of their words. Not all. You spread another cloth to dry near the fire. The hiss of damp fabric on heat fills the air, masking the last few syllables. Still, you have already heard enough. You always hear enough. Your role is not to judge, not to speak. Your role is to carry secrets like you carry herbs, folded, bound, tucked away, their scents clinging long after you try to wash them off. You glance once at the curtain. The candle flame flickers near its edge, and for a moment it looks thin enough to see through. But you do not need to. You already know. The whispers soften, break off, replaced by the scrape of a stool across the floor. The sister moves to stir the hearth. The husband stands with his back to the wall, staring at nothing. The curtain remains in place, fragile, trembling slightly as the mother shifts beneath it. The baby sighs, the mother hums again, and the house falls back into its ordinary sounds, crackling fire, dripping wax, the faint whimper of new breath. But the air has changed. You feel it, the way you feel damp in linen long before it shows. You add another secret to the basket you carry inside yourself, knowing it will never lighten, only press heavier with each morning. Outside, another rooster calls. Morning has arrived fully now. But here inside, the day has already moved further than anyone will admit. The quiet exchange of coins. The curtain still sways faintly, though the whispers have ended. The mother lies silent now, her child pressed against her chest, both of them breathing in uneven rhythm. The husband glances toward the bed once, then steps closer to you. His shoes scuff the packed floor. A small sound against the crackle of the hearth. He clears his throat softly, as if to push words forward, but no words come. Instead, his hand dips into his coat. His fingers fumble, searching, until they find the small purse hidden in the lining. You look at your hands instead of his, as though folding another cloth requires your full attention. The purse is drawn out, leather soft, worn thin at the edges. He unties it clumsily, the string stiff from neglect. He tips it against his palm, letting a few coins fall with a muffled clink. Not many, never many. Enough to mean something, not enough to ease anything. They rest in his hand like a small pile of secrets, dull in the dim light, edges rubbed smooth by too much passing. He presses them toward you, not with ceremony, not with gratitude, but with the kind of quickness that hopes to be unnoticed. You do not reach for them right away. You let the moment stretch, the air thick with the soft cry of the baby and the hiss of a damp cloth near the fire. When you finally take them, your hand closes slow, your palm cool. The coins click against your skin and fall silent. You do not count them, you never do. Counting would make the exchange louder than it should be. Instead, you slip them into a pocket of your basket, hidden beneath folded linen, as though they are simply more cloth to be used and forgotten. The weight is small, but it pulls heavy against the handle when you lift it. The husband exhales, shoulders dropping. His eyes dart once toward the curtain, then away again. His lips part as if to speak, but only a quiet thank you makes its way out. The words are flat, low, meant less for gratitude and more for closure. He needs the sound to seal the moment, and you let him have it. The sister watches from the hearth, her hands still trembling faintly as she stirs the pot. She pretends not to notice the coins, but her eyes flicker once to your basket, then away. You see it, though you give no sign. Secrets move like smoke. They always find new corners to settle. The mother stirs behind the curtain, humming again, unaware of the silence her family keeps at her expense. Her voice is weak, fragile, but it wraps around the baby with enough warmth to soothe. You listen, and for a moment the song seems to soften, even the clink of coins still echoing faintly in your palm. You close the basket carefully, cloth folded over the pocket where the money now rests. Your hands linger on the lid, pressing it down as though sealing not just the items inside, but the whispers, the secrets, the payment, the hush that follows. The fire pops, the candle gutters, the basin cools. The room feels smaller than when you entered, but also fuller, as if it holds more than its walls should allow. You adjust your shawl, lift your basket, and nod once to the husband. He nods back, quick, curt, as though eager for you to step out and carry the silence away with you. You step toward the door, the coins still warm from his hand pressing against the cloth of your basket. The sound of the baby's breathing follows you, small, uneven, stronger with each moment. The sister dips her head as you pass, her lips tight, her eyes refusing to meet yours. At the threshold, you pause just long enough to draw one more breath of the room. Iron, smoke, milk, sweat, secrecy. Then you step out into the cooler air, the village sounds waiting. The exchange is finished, but the weight of it stays with you, pressed heavy into your palm long after the coins have gone still. You step back into the morning air. The door closes behind you with a soft, tired thud, as if the wood itself has worked all night and would like to lie down. The lane meets you with a different breath than the house cooler, wider, washed with damp that sneaks into wool and lingers there like an old guest. You draw it in and let it sit. The basket is lighter now, but your arm does not agree. Your arm insists that weight is a matter for muscles while your mind counts in other measures. Light has found its way into the village at last, a pale sweep across roofs and fences. It is not a brave light, not the kind that shouts. It moves like a quiet hand over a sleeping child's hair. Smoke threads up from a dozen chimneys, grey-blue, torn by a breeze that cannot decide which direction deserves its attention. Somewhere a pail clatters. Somewhere else, a broom complains along a step. The world is still mostly gentle, as if trying not to wake itself too abruptly. You adjust your shawl. It smells of the room you left. iron and milk, sweat and tallow, a hint of chamomile still clinging to your fingers. You rub your palms together once, as if heat could rub memory away. It cannot, of course. Memory is less obedient than stain. Your shoes sink a little into the lane's soft places. The dew has not decided to leave, and your steps print the question of it into mud. You go slowly, not from fatigue, though there is that. You go slowly because that is how the village is shaped. Haste would only catch you on a nail, or turn your ankle on a stone, and call attention you do not need. A dog raises its head behind a fence, considers you, then decides you are not news. You nod to it anyway, because it is polite to acknowledge those who mind their own business. A boy swings a bucket from a door to a well, spilling half his purpose on the ground before he even gets there. He sees you and tightens his mouth, as if you carry a rule that forbids spilling. You do not. You carry other rules, most of them unspoken. The air tastes like wet straw and last night's cabbage. A better scent tries to pass new bread somewhere near the square. It arrives in a soft wave and goes on its way, the sort of kindness that doesn't stay long enough to be tiresome. Your stomach notices, then pretends it didn't. Breakfast has already made its argument. You pass a wall where ivy has climbed in a lopsided hurry, then slowed, puzzled by its own ambition. Chickens argue in a yard, their voices cutting the morning into uneven strips. One flutters onto a barrel, turns once, decides the view is the same, hops down again. You step around them, and they step around you, all parties satisfied with the arrangement. A woman at a doorway lifts her chin in your direction. Her hair hides in a scarf not quite tied. She means to call a greeting, but the word turns into a cough before it arrives. You give her a small tilt of the basket and keep moving. The cough is not your business this hour. It will be some hour. Everything is. Eventually. The church bell gives a single, thoughtful note. Not a summons, not yet more a reminder that time still considers itself in charge. The sound rolls along the lane, across the roofs, through the fence slats where the goats put their noses as if the bell might smell of something worth eating. The goats, finding it does not, return to their work. Your thoughts try to line themselves in a neat row and fail. They prefer to gather like linen on a windy line, pinched here, blown there, always brushing your shoulder when you least want them. The sister's whisper, the husband's eyes, the baby's first voice, all of it hangs in the morning air, draped across the ordinary. You do not tug at these thoughts. You let them sway until they tire. The square opens in front of you, not grand, not even symmetrical, but large enough for a market to pretend to happen. A few stalls already stand unhappy and half-arranged, their cloths damp along the edges. Bundles of herbs, dull fish, yesterday's onions pretending to be today's, all waiting to be believed. You will replenish your basket later, but not now. Your hands still remember the jar, the knife, the linen, and the remembering is enough to make them heavy. You stop at the trough where a thin line of water insists on being a stream. You set the basket on the low wall and dip your hands. The cold climbs your fingers and lodges in your knuckles. You rub your palms until the chill stings the skin clean, or clean enough. The smell of iron wanders off a little. Chamomile lingers, stubborn as a thought you didn't ask for. You shake your hands and pat them dry on the shawl's edge, which accepts the moisture because it is used to being consulted last. A cart arrives, wheels limping, led by a man who looks as if he has slept half as much as his horse, which is to say, poorly. He nods at you with the slow dignity of the nearly awake. You nod back with the same. The horse shows no interest in either of you. It reserves its interest for a patch of grass that has done nothing to deserve such devotion. A gust comes along and tries to rummage your shawl off your shoulder. You hold it in place with one hand and consider the sky, which still hesitates between grey and something gentler. Rain threatens in the way of people who declare they are leaving and then stays for another hour of talk. You plan for damp anyway. You always do. Plans offend no one and occasionally save linen. You lift the basket and feel the new balance, the emptiness where a jar was heavier, the space where cloth used to be, the corner that the knife has returned to so properly it might have never moved. The pocket where coins rest is quiet. Coins do not rattle for you, they press. You think of the beds you have left behind, the ones you will meet before evening. You think of names you will not repeat, and faces you will not describe, except to yourself, and only then in the small handwriting of memory. A girl runs across the square with a loaf under her arm and nothing on her feet. She leaves a map of her morning in wet prints. At the edge of the square, a man plays at mending a basket that clearly does not wish to be mended, pouting under his hands with each new reed. He scowls at it, and the basket scowls back. You look at your own basket and pat it once. It does not need encouragement, but you give it anyway, to keep the balance. You choose a side street where puddles are fewer, where the wind remembers to be kind. The houses here are closer, as if they have leaned together during the night to share a story. If they did, you were not invited. That is fine. You have enough stories to sit with, and they do not enjoy company. For a moment you stand still, letting your breath find the speed the morning has settled on. Not the house's speed, not the market's eyes, not the bells, just yours. You roll your shoulder once, shift the basket, loosen your jaw. Colder air brushes the damp out of your hairline. A single drop falls from a roof edge and finds the back of your neck. It is unasked for and brisk, but then, so is most of your day. You walk on. The sun has not climbed far, but it has climbed enough to make shadows choose their owners. Yours keeps pace beside you, long and practical. Your steps take you past a window where a woman beats a rug with more enthusiasm than the rug deserves. Dust leaps out and pretends to be a cloud. It isn't. It is the past, leaving by the only door it understands. The village gathers itself toward noon, but you are not yet there. You are between one room and the next, between one secret and several more, between the warm closeness of the hearth and the wide cool of the lane. The basket is lighter. Your arm is not full. Neither are you. You keep walking, as you always do, letting the morning finish surprising itself while you make your way to the next door. A neighbor calls you by name before you see her. Your name carries along the lane with the slow authority of habit, like a broom that knows the doorway it will sweep. You do not startle. Your name is used as often as your basket, and with the same combination of gratitude and caution. You turn your head only a little, because turning fully would make more of the moment than it requires. She stands at her threshold, with her sleeves pushed up, and a damp cloth looped over one shoulder. The morning has found her hair before she has strands cling where steam from the pot has softened them. She says your name again, softer, as if the second saying might claim you in a gentler way. You lift your chin in answer, and let your steps slow until they match the pace of neighbor talk. Never fast enough to hurry, never slow enough to be trapped, she asks after your morning without asking. People do that, shape a question with the parts that are not words. You give her the answer you always give, which is not an answer so much as a temperature, early. The word sits between you both, warm enough to be polite, cool enough to close further inquiry. She nods, understanding too much, and exactly enough. From the shadow of her doorway a child peers out, thumb planted so firmly in his mouth it might be growing there. His eyes are round, reflective as damp pebbles. Children pretend not to stare, and then proceed to stare, as if staring were a profession. You glide your palm over the basket handle to show him how an adult's hands can be still when they want to. He pulls his thumb free, considers the stillness, and puts the thumb back with a small, decisive pop. The neighbor tilts her head toward the pot that breathes on the hearthstone inside. Barley, she says, which explains the soft, wet smell in the air. Barley always smells like a patient plan. It is not a flattering smell, but it is honest. You say it will see her through the day. She shrugs, pleased that the simple thing she has chosen is blessed by someone who sees complicated things. Her eyes touch the basket quickly, respectfully, as if looking full at it might make it answer back. People look at your basket the way they look at weather, as if it can be consulted only by noticing. Busy already? She asks, though she hears the answer in the damp thread of your shawl and the flattened angle of your mouth. Enough, you say. The word has many rooms. It holds a cry, a thank you, a door closing softly. She steps aside in case you might want to enter, then realizes you will not, and steps back into her doorway, where her life is. That small dance happens in many thresholds, and each time it is done as if no one choreographed it. A hen wanders across the lane between you, scratching like a bad listener. The bird fluffs, finds nothing, pretends that nothing was the goal all along, and moves on. You watch its self-importance with the mild interest one gives to small theatre. The neighbour smiles without showing teeth. 2 women, 1 hen, a lane, all of it behaves as expected. It is a comfort disguised as a mourning. "Will you pass by old martyrs later?" she asks, lowering her voice for a name that does not require secrecy but always receives it. You say you will see what the day gives. She rubs her forearm as if her question had left a mark on her skin. "If you do," she mutters, "tell her my joints have been loud this week." Loud joints, she has given them the right adjective. You file the note where you file such notes, in that careful cupboard of the mind that shares a wall with memory and does not creak when opened. From another doorway farther down, a man raises a hand in a salute that stops 2 fingers short of cheer. He does not say your name. Some prefer to greet your occupation and leave your name for private use. You return the same portion of salute, which is the correct amount for a lane where bread is still becoming bread, and the day has not yet chosen its mistakes. The neighbour steps 1 foot onto the stoop, looks left and right in the old habit of anyone who is about to let something quiet fall into the air. "I have a niece," she begins, as if the world did not already have evidence of nieces in every lane. She has been pale, not ill, only thin with thoughts. There is no illness called thin with thoughts, but there are many girls who catch it. You do not prescribe for thoughts in the lane. The lane is for listening, which you do now, establishing the low, steady current into which she can pour her worry without splashing. "She eats," the neighbour adds quickly, as if the village might be hiding behind your shore, ready to accuse her of neglect. Just not with enthusiasm. You nod. Enthusiasm is not a food you can buy at market. "I'll come by," you say. The words land somewhere between promise and possibility. She accepts them as the better of the two. A cart rolls across the square and complains to the earth in a language the earth knows too well. Behind it, 2 boys drag sticks along a fence in the precise rhythm that turns sticks into drums. They see you, and slow, as if you were a thin sheet of rain and they were deciding whether to run. You do not require them to choose. They carry on. The neighbour watches them with the particular impatience of anyone who remembers being a child and cannot understand why children insist on behaving like one. She reaches for the cloth on her shoulder, starts to wipe her hands on it, then thinks better and folds it instead. "You are kind to come," she says, choosing a word that is easier to carry than the heavier ones she might think. You do not correct her. Kindness and duty are cousins who wear each other's coats. Today, you answer, which is not a promise to her alone, but also to yourself, to keep the day from wandering too far from its path. A second neighbour calls your name, this one older, voice roughened by a catarrh that winters with him and refuses to move out in spring. He wants to know if the apothecary's fennel is worth the coins this week. You give a small tilt of your head. That means the fennel is fennel. The value will depend on his stomach's mood. He laughs, then coughs, then laughs at the cough. The lane smiles with him. Even the dogs approve. Between greetings, your name floats back to you like a loaf passed along a table. Each person cuts a small slice, some butter it with gratitude, some with need, some with the unsalted spread of mere habit. You receive each slice and do not count. Counting, like curiosity, has its place, but not here, not this hour. The neighbour at the threshold says your name once more, this time only to say it, because some mornings the saying is what steadies the world. Your name, the name of the baker's daughter, the name of the saint on the wall, the name of the cow that refuses to give more than she wishes. Names are pegs, and the day hangs its weight there. You let yours be useful. The steam from her pot climbs slow and loses itself at the lintel, marking the spot where home ends and weather begins. She looks up at it as if it were a thought escaping. "If you pass by at dusk," she says, "there will be a crust. Crust is a way of saying thank you that does not sound like thank you. You say you will see, and that is a way of accepting that does not sound like yes. You shift the basket to your other arm. The handle prints its old map into your palm. Your shawl remembers the house you just left and keeps the memory to itself. The lane remembers your steps and arranges its stones accordingly. You take one step backward to finish the talk without turning your back. Another small choreography that spares both of you from making a ceremony where none is required. Early, she repeats, echoing your first answer, and in the echo there is agreement. The day will be long, the errands many, the secrets as ordinary as bread. You incline your head. She retreats into the scent of barley. The child watches you leave as if leaving were an art worth studying. Perhaps it is. You move on, your name trailing after you in whispers that are not unkind, in glances that are not prying, in the soft gravity of a village that places more on your silence than on its own words. The road ahead lifts slightly where the sun rests its hand, and you follow it, as you always do, carrying the basket that holds your tools and the other basket that no one sees. The market smells of herbs and fish. You reach it slowly, basket against your arm, the square already filling with sounds that overlap like gossiping hens. The stalls stand crooked, some no more than tables balanced on tired legs, others shaded with cloth that hangs limp in the morning damp. The earth beneath your shoes is churned into patches of mud, straw tossed here and there in a losing effort to dry it. The air strikes you first sharp, crowded, layered. A heap of parsley breathes its green freshness, only to be drowned a moment later by the sour insistence of fish laid out on wooden planks, their eyes wide and dull, their mouths open in silent complaint. Smoke from a brazier drifts across, carrying the sweet tang of roasting chestnuts, but it cannot disguise the undercurrent of salt and scales. A basket of onions nearby adds its own pungent voice, and behind it a wheel of cheese sighs with a smell that suggests it has been too long waiting. You walk slowly, because moving quickly would not lessen the smells, only stir them into a storm. The merchants call out in uneven chorus, their greetings part sales pitch, part warning not to forget them. "Fresh fish! River caught!" One shouts, though the river's idea of freshness is questionable. Another sings of apples, their skins waxy, some bruised, all stacked as if stacking might persuade you. You stop at the herb stall, as you always do. Bundles hang from cords strung overhead, their leaves dry and curled, their stems bound in twine. Sage, rosemary, thyme, yarrow companions already living in your basket, but soon to be replenished. You pick up a sprig, rub it between your fingers, release its tired scent. The merchant watches, eager, though he knows you will not haggle. You never do. Coins pass from your hand to his, quiet, exact. He gives you more bundles, heavier than before, as if weight could be mistaken for generosity. You tuck them neatly into your basket, the smell spilling up and over, chasing away some of the fish. A boy runs past with a tray of eggs, his feet quick, his tray trembling like a nervous confession. One egg tips, nearly falls, but he steadies it with the sharp motion of someone who has learned already that mistakes cost more than bruises. He does not look at you, but his shadow brushes yours, and you catch the faint whiff of straw and feathers as he passes. The fish stall calls louder as you near, the merchant raising a gutted carp like a trophy. Its scales catch the weak sunlight, glinting dull silver. The smell is stronger here, insistent, clinging to cloth, to breath, to memory. You pause only long enough to take what you need, salted fish wrapped in a twist of cloth. The merchant grins with yellow teeth, says something about strong women needing strong meals. You do not answer. The coins clink, the parcel drops into your basket, and you move on. The fish smell follows anyway, worming its way around the herbs, refusing to be ignored. You pass baskets of bread, their crusts cracking faintly, still warm. The smell is softer here, kinder, reminding you of mornings long before roosters or whispers. You let yourself pause, just briefly, inhaling the yeasty calm. A small loaf finds its way into your basket without ceremony. Beyond, a woman sells cloth, bolts stacked in uneven towers, dyed in muted shades brown, grey, a tired blue. You run your fingers across one length, coarse, serviceable, already thinking of it cut into strips for swaddling or bandages. The woman meets your eyes and nods, no words needed. You buy a length, fold it, press it into the basket's side. All around you, voices tumble, gossip about a neighbour's son, complaint about a stubborn cow, whispers about a girl who walks too often alone. Each thread of talk weaves into the air, caught between smells of herbs and fish, between smoke and damp straw. You do not linger to untangle them. You let them slide past. Another layer of sound folded into the morning. The market is not beautiful, not kind, not clean, but it is steady. Each stall stands where it stood last week. Each merchant cries the same words. Each smell rises with the same insistence. You walk through it as you always do, basket heavier, air thick, steps slow. When you leave the square, the lane ahead smells less crowded. The herbs rise from your basket, cutting sharper now against the fish. The noise of voices fades behind you, replaced by the low creak of a cart and the flap of washing strung high between houses. Your stomach carries bread, your basket carries more, your ears carry whispers, your hands carry nothing but the handle. The market has given what it always gives, enough. Old women watch you closely. They do not hurry to do it. Watching is their slow craft, and they practice it from benches and low stools and doorstones warmed by many mornings. They sit where the lane becomes a corner of the square, where the wash lines make shadows like thin flags, where a good eye can keep 3 directions in reach. Their hands are never idle thread, bread, a twig becoming a broom, a heel of cheese cut too carefully to be hunger, and yet the eyes do most of the work. They have your name, of course, and several versions of it. Names collect variations the way wool collects burrs. They use the one that fits the distance. When you are near, they speak it as if it were a cup they mean not to spill. When you are farther off, they fold it into a hum, a syllable sewn between a remark about rain and a note about the miller's habit of measuring loosely. You return a small nod, which is the tax you pay for crossing their territory whole. They measure you with soft tools. They count the angle of your shoulders against the basket's pull. They count the damp at the edge of your shawl, the set of your mouth when you think no one sees it, the pace of your steps when the lane offers a grace of smooth ground. They count your silences the way other people count coins. They do not add aloud. That is not their way. One of them taps the bench beside her. It is not truly an invitation. It is a weighing of you against a moment she can spare. You sit for the time it takes a cloud to cross the sun. The bench holds both of you because it has held more. She asks after your bones, as if bones were a weather anyone might forecast. They are obedient, you say, which means they complain in the old places and keep walking anyway. She accepts this and produces a few fennel seeds from a pouch for your pocket, because breath, like talk, sometimes needs sweetening after difficult rooms. Another old woman, her hair the colour of flour that has seen too many hands, leans forward to touch the rim of your basket. Not the contents, only the rim. The rim tells her what she wishes to know. How long you have carried it this morning, whether the handle has bitten, whether the weight is the sort that ends at the wrist or travels to the back. She nods the small nod of a judge who hears a witness say exactly what she expected. They speak of herbs the way other people speak of saints, with respect, with small arguments over which one listens best. Yarrow for the restless blood, sage for the foggy mind, rosemary for the spirit that forgets itself when winter lays its hand too long. You let them list what you already carry. Their recipes are roads. People walk them because others have, and because the ground is familiar underfoot. A pot of broth appears from a doorway behind them, as if the bench itself had ordered it. Thin, truthful broth, its skin of fat broken by a spoon that knows where to stir. The old woman with flower hair insists you drink 2 swallows, which is a ceremony disguised as concern. You accept the ceremony, and its heat works a small order in you. The cup smells of time. Everything smells of time when old women are near. It is their idea of clean. They bring up no names and all names. A girl too pale, one says, which is enough to travel to the right house. A boy who runs wrong, another adds, and your mind supplies the ankle you have watched turn inward since harvest. A man who thinks beer is medicine, says a third, and the bench approves of the diagnosis without prescribing a cure. They speak like the wind moves through a field, bending one patch of grain, then another, never uprooting, always telling you which way the day leans. Their eyes notice what doors do not close fully. They notice a curtain that pulled too quickly at dawn, a window that opened in a month when windows prefer to sulk. They notice a loaf bought with too few coins and a smile paid with too many teeth. They notice the place on your shawl where chamomile has perfumed the wool, and in that scent they read what you did not say about the house you left before the roosters learned their parts. They do not comment. Comment is for people who assume knowledge changes things. The bench understands that knowledge does only one thing well. It stays. A thread snaps in the hands of the quietest among them. She ties it with a knot, so small even the knot is embarrassed. Everything holds, she says to the thread, and because you are there, the words pretend to be for you. You accept them and give a word back. Enough. The exchange satisfies the morning's accounting. They remember your teacher. They remember her teacher's limp after the winter of the long cough. They remember the year the river misbehaved and the year the wheat sulked, and the year the mayor's wife discovered patience, which did not suit her. Their memories are a library without shelves. You ask for a volume by tone rather than title, and one of them produces the right page. You have learned to be patient with their catalogue. It has never lost a book. Someone brings out a crust, the sturdy heel of the loaf that often finds its way to you because heels, like secrets, are better chewed by those who do not hurry. You tuck it into your basket beside the cloth you bought at market. The old woman pats the basket rim again, approving the company of bread and linen and herbs. Bread for the body, linen for the mess, herbs for the air between. She does not say it. She sighs the sentence instead. They ask nothing you cannot answer. Will the rain take pity? One wonders, studying a sky that keeps its plans in untidy folds. You say, it will choose a corner of the day and be done with it. This is what they wished to hear, not accuracy, but proportion. The world is bearable when it arrives in portions. A child edges near, a granddaughter by the look of knees and curiosity. She brings you a goose feather and declares it a quill. The old woman beside you lifts her brows as if surprised by the feather's ambition. You accept it solemnly, because solemnity is the right coat for small gifts. You say it will write weather and recipes, which is almost the same as writing history around here. The child brightens and is gone. When you rise from the bench, you do it in the pace of old women, not to mock them, but to honor the physics of their world, where standing is an agreement between bones and intention. They are pleased by this courtesy, though they pretend to be pleased by nothing. One touches the back of your hand with 2 fingers, a blessing that claims not to be a blessing. Walk well, she says. The phrase means take care of feet, and secrets, and silence. You step away, the bench returning to its duties of watching and slow arithmetic. Their eyes follow you but do not press. They will add your morning to a ledger no one sees, and balance it with a crumb of bread and a report on the price of fennel. Their close attention feels less like inspection and more like a net that catches what the day drops. You do not resent it. Nets keep fish from sinking. Nets keep names from slipping away. As you turn the corner, the time fades and the lane regains its louder smells fish and straw and a hint of tar where a roof was mended badly. Your basket rides your arm as if it has decided to behave for another street. You breathe once in the way the old women like, to show you were paying attention. Slow in, slower out. The village obliges by not surprising you. The bench behind you resumes counting. You give them your back without worry. If anyone knows how to keep it, they do. Children run past in muddy feet. You hear them first, the slap of skin against wet earth, the shrill scatter of laughter that does not ask permission. Then they appear, 3 of them, streaking down the lane as if chased by a wind only they can feel. Their shirts are untucked, their knees stained, their hair stuck in damp tufts where dew and sweat have joined. One carries a stick like a sword, Another drags a hoop that wobbles dangerously near the ditch, and the third simply runs with arms wide, as if the morning itself were something to embrace. The mud splashes where they land hardest, streaking their legs, their hems, their heels. They do not care. Mud is their ally, their disguise, their badge. Each footprint prints the story of freedom that no adult will admire but all will remember. They glance at you, eyes wide for a moment, then flick away just as quickly. Respect is measured not by pausing, but by how swiftly they make space for your steps. They swerve around you, their shrieks bending into softer notes as they pass, like music muffled under a door. Your basket sways but does not jolt. You keep your pace unbroken. Children carry their own weather, and you let them. The smell of fish and herbs from your basket mixes briefly with their smell of earth, sweat, and damp wool, then separates again. You watch their shadows race ahead of them on the ground, stretched long by a sun still low, their movements jerky, limbs flying, energy spilling with no place to store it. One of the boys shouts about kingship, another about treasure buried near the mill, another insists on dragons. Their voices tangle until the words are less important than the sound, a living rope of noise pulled down the lane. They leave traces: mud splashed against a wall, a stick forgotten in a rut, a hoop rolling half a moment longer before collapsing. The silence that follows feels almost heavy, though you know it will not last. Children never allow silence to remain long. A girl lingers at the edge of their pack, slower, smaller. She is not running. She is hopping, counting the stones, careful not to place her bare foot in puddles. Her dress is patched twice at the hem, and her hair is bound with a piece of string that used to be part of something else. She notices you more than the others do. She stops mid-hop, thumb grazing her lips, eyes fixed on your basket. You let your gaze rest briefly on her, long enough for her to flush with the recognition that you have seen her, but not long enough to turn it into a demand. She hurries after the others, stones forgotten, mud finally splashing against her toes. Their voices trail down toward the square, where they will find another argument, another game, another reason to shout, until the world is convinced of their existence. You adjust the weight of your basket, listening as their laughter fades into the calls of merchants and the creak of a cart. The lane seems quieter without them, though the chickens still scratch, a dog still barks once, and the air still smells of damp straw. You step carefully past the puddles they left deeper with their running. The mud reflects the sky, pale and flat, a mirror for clouds that look too tired to decide whether they belong to morning or to rain. Your shoes press into the earth with softer sounds than theirs, measured, unhurried, each step claiming its place without splashing. Children are often the first to see you, the first to announce you, the first to run away and pretend they did not. They sense what adults hide: your basket heavier than it looks, your silence sharper than your words. They test its edge and then dart aside, quick as birds. You let them. Secrets pass children like smoke through shutters, noticed, scented, but never held. You pass a wall where handprints mark the plaster, small palms pressed into drying lime long ago, frozen play turned into permanence. They seem to wave at you now, smeared and uneven but confident. You imagine the same hands now grown, now wringing bread dough, now carrying water. You glance once more at the lane ahead, where the last echo of laughter curls back on itself like a ribbon. Your steps continue. The mud clings to your shoes but does not trouble you. The air is still damp, still filled with the mixed smells of market and hearth. The village carries on, and so do you, with children's voices fading behind you like a song half-remembered, muddy footprints left, as proof that morning was theirs before it was anyone else's. A midday rest beneath the linden tree. The lane has carried you far enough for the sun to find its height, though the light still feels tired, as if it has climbed more than it wished. You reach the edge of the village square, where the linden spreads its branches like a canopy made for everyone and no one. Its leaves tremble in the small breeze, their undersides pale, flashing silver green each time they tilt. The air beneath it is cooler, shaded, damp with the faint scent of crushed blossoms that fell days ago and still cling to the grass. You lower yourself to the ground with the careful bend of someone who does not wish to test her knees more than necessary. The tree roots bulge in twisted lines, and you choose a spot where the earth dips just enough to cradle you without demanding. The basket rests against the trunk, its handle tilted like a shoulder, easing its burden. You stretch your fingers once, feeling the grooves the wood has pressed into your palm, the faint ache that now feels more like companionship than pain. The village hums beyond the shade. Hooves clatter on stone as a cart pulls itself toward the square. A dog barks once, short and declarative. Pots clang in a nearby yard, each sound bouncing off the walls and returning softer. Above it all, the buzz of bees in the linden threads steadily, as if the whole day was stitched with their wings. You close your eyes halfway, letting the hum settle. From your basket, the smell of herbs drifts upward, mingling with the sweetness of the linden. Yarrow, rosemary, sage, all sharper, drier, more insistent than the tree's blossoms, but not unwelcome. The salted fish parcel presses its presence forward too, blunt and stubborn, unwilling to be forgotten. Together, they form an aroma that is not pleasant, not unpleasant, simply true. The smell of work, of living, of carrying. You draw out a small piece of bread from the loaf you tucked away earlier. Its crust has hardened already, though the inside still gives under your teeth. You chew slowly, crumbs falling to the ground where ants patrol. They find the pieces within moments, lifting them with a discipline that makes your chewing feel almost lazy. You watch them march the crumbs away, a parade of tiny labourers beneath the giant shadow of the linden. The breeze shifts, carrying the laughter of children still chasing their morning games somewhere near the mill. Their voices come faint, broken by distance, yet lively enough to stitch themselves into the air. You hear an older woman's scold pierce the laughter, sharp as a thrown pebble. Then the laughter resumes, softer, defiant. You tilt your head against the bark, letting the sounds pass through you without needing your attention. Above, the branches creak faintly, as if stretching against their own age. A cluster of leaves shifts, and sunlight pierces through in shifting coins of gold. They spill across your shawl, your lap, your hands resting still. You study the pattern they make, moving with each sigh of the wind. No two patches of light remain the same for long, but they leave their impression anyway, fleeting, ordinary enough. You drink a little from your flask of water, the liquid cool, tasting faintly of metal. It rinses the bread from your mouth, leaves your tongue clean, your throat steadied. You cap it slowly, letting the threads of the lid find their place without rush. Each motion under the linden feels slower, as though the shade itself insists on lengthening time. The church bell rings once, twice, then falls silent. Midday. The sound rolls outward and is swallowed by the roofs, the fences, the trees. The bees continue, unaffected. You breathe in, long and even, your chest rising against the shawl, your breath carrying the mingled scents of herb and blossom. The ground beneath you is cool, the grass flattened by your weight. You lean your head back against the trunk, the bark rough against your scalp. You let your eyes close, not to sleep, but to listen differently. Behind the hum of bees, you hear a horse stamp, a child cry briefly, a woman laugh, water spill from a bucket. All the small truths of the village happening at once, each as steady as your own breath. You rest there, not fully apart, not fully within. The linden offers its shade, the earth offers its support, the air offers its noise and its quiet in equal measure. For a few breaths, your basket is only a shape against the tree. Your hands are only hands, and the secrets you carry feel as distant as the horizon. Another knock, another story. You rise from beneath the linden, joints creaking as if they too had grown roots in the shaded soil. The basket is heavier now, though you have added nothing since the market. It is always heavier after rest, as though the pause reminds your arm what weight means. You adjust the handle and move back into the lane, where the sun has gathered more strength and the shadows have shrunk to short companions beneath doorways. The houses lean close here, their walls patched with straw and clay, their shutters crooked, their thresholds worn smooth. Laundry flutters above the lane, on ropes strung between windows, shirts and skirts, twisting as if gossiping among themselves. The air tastes of cabbage boiled too long, and smoke that has forgotten where it came from. You walk slowly, each step leaving a print in dust now drying to powder. Then comes the knock. Sharp, hurried, 3 strikes against a door frame. The sound carries across the lane, echoing off plaster walls, reaching you before the caller even notices you. You pause, because pauses are part of your craft. You let the knock repeat, slower this time, more insistent, before you move toward it. A young man stands at the door, his cap in his hands, his eyes darting to the ground and back to you. His face is pale, not with sickness, but with the nervousness of being the messenger. Behind him, inside the dim house, you can hear voices, one soft, one strained, the kind of sound that has already swallowed fear and now chews on patience. He says your name, not loud, not steady, but enough. You nod once, the permission he needs to step aside. You duck into the house, the air meeting you with the heat of too many bodies in too small a room. The shutters are closed, the light thin, the hearth smoking as if sulking over its task. The smell is thick sweat, smoke, damp linen. A young woman lies on a narrow bed, her hair damp, her hands twisted in the blanket. Beside her sits another woman, perhaps her mother, whispering words that are more habit than comfort. You set your basket down on the floor, its thud muffled by the packed earth. The young man hovers in the doorway, cap twisting in his fingers. His eyes beg questions he will not ask. You do not answer what he cannot say. You move with your usual rhythm, each motion calm, each object placed with care. Cloth, herbs, jar, knife, each laid out in quiet order, as if the table were a page and you were writing on it. The young mother's breath catches, sharp, uneven. You rest a hand on her arm, cool and steady. Your voice is soft, barely more than a hum, the same rhythm you used in another house this morning. Breath, rest, wait, breathe again. She follows, not perfectly, but enough. Her eyes close, her grip loosens, her body surrenders one knot at a time. The older woman murmurs a prayer, eyes darting to you as though you and the saints share duties. You ignore the prayer but not the tone. Tone is often more useful than faith. You rub chamomile oil into your palms. Let the sweetness spread through the thick room, mixing with the bitter of smoke. You place your hand on the young woman's belly, not pressing, only listening with your skin. The muscle tightens, releases, gathers again. You nod, though to whom you nod no one asks. The knock that brought you here still echoes in your chest, faint but steady. It is always the same, urgent, hopeful, helpless. It carries stories before you even enter. You hear them in the way the man knocked sharp with fear, softened by shame. You hear them in the whispers between the older woman and the younger, words about timing, about names, about what the neighbours might say. You do not write these stories down, but they etch themselves anyway, another layer on your silence. The house breathes with you now. Fire crackle, breath catch, cloth rustle. You guide, you wait, you steady. The story that began with a knock moves into its middle, and you know its ending already, though you will not say it. You never say it. You only carry it, from door to door, from morning to night, from knock to knock. Outside, children shout again, their feet drumming the lane. The sound presses faintly through the shutters, as if to remind this house that life continues even while it waits. The mother does not hear. She is too deep in her own rhythm, her own story. You sit beside her, basket open, hands ready, voice calm. Another knock, another story. Each one feels different. Each one is the same. The tension of a hidden father. The young woman breathes in the dim room, her hair stuck to her cheeks, her hands gripping the rough blanket. The older woman dabs her brow with a cloth, whispering prayers that slip between teeth as though rushed through a locked gate. You sit close, your hand resting lightly on the young mother's wrist, feeling the pulse climb and fall, a rhythm older than the walls. The young man hovers still, cap twisting endlessly, his eyes fixed anywhere but the bed. He steps forward once, then back again, caught in a pattern of movement that speaks of obligation more than belonging. You note the way the older woman's eyes flick toward him, once sharp, once soft, never settled. His hands fumble with the cap, his shoulders sag beneath its invisible weight. You do not ask whose weight it is. You already know enough. The young mother groans, teeth clenched, breath catching. You speak low, guiding her through the crest and fall. Your words are simple, steady, not for meaning but for shape. Breath in, breath out, long and low, as though she is blowing dust from a window ledge. She follows, at least for a moment, before pain drags her away again. The older woman murmurs about saints, about timing, about fortune. The young man stands straighter, lips pressing thin, as though her words accuse him in ways she does not intend. His jaw tightens, his gaze fixes on the floorboards. He shifts again, restless, stepping forward but not too close. He does not reach for her hand. He does not even look at her face. You have seen this before. The tension in a room thickens not only from pain and sweat, but from what is unspoken, from who stands near but does not belong. The body labors alone, but the air carries others' secrets, pressing against the walls until the shutters seem to strain. You keep your voice level, your hands precise, because if you begin to tremble, the whole house will. The young mother cries out again, louder now, her voice sharp, rattling the shutter slats. The older woman presses her cloth harder, whispers faster, eyes darting once more to the young man. He shifts, mutters something under his breath. You catch it without meaning to, a name, not hers. The sound is quick, bitter, unmeant for the air, yet the air carries it to you. You keep your eyes on your work, folding another cloth, smoothing it, but the word lingers like smoke. The young woman does not hear. She is too far into her own storm. Her breath hitches, her nails scrape the blanket, her hair dampens further. You guide, you steady, you wait. The older woman keeps her prayers going, but her eyes, sharp now, rest on the man again. She sees what you see. She has likely always seen. The room says nothing, yet it shouts. Your basket lies open beside you, its contents neat, waiting. The knife in its cloth, the herbs in their bundle, the jar with its faint scent of chamomile. They are simple, ordinary, never secret. The secrets in this room are not in the basket. They are in the spaces between breaths, in the weight of a glance, in the way a name slips uninvited into the air. You carry them all the same. The young man clears his throat, says he will fetch water. He does not wait for agreement. He steps out quickly, leaving the door ajar, just enough for air, just enough for absence. The older woman exhales, long, weary, as if the act of holding her tongue has cost her as much as the girl's labor. She looks at you once, her gaze asking nothing but giving everything away. You meet it briefly, then lower your eyes. You will not repeat what you have seen, though you cannot unsee it. The young woman moans, her body pulling its own tide forward. You lean in, steady her breathing again, voice low, slow, even. You give her rhythm, the only anchor in a room where truths drift unclaimed. She clutches your arm now, her grip tight, desperate, present. You stay with her, while the air around you holds its own silence, stretched thin by secrets no one speaks aloud. Outside, the lane carries on. A cart creaks, a child calls, a rooster crows once more, though it has no reason left. Inside, the labor continues. The mother breathes, and you hold steady, while tension swells around you like water in a jar filled too close to the rim. A candlelit delivery in the afternoon. Hours have bent and folded since the first cries, and the sun has begun to lean westward, though here inside the house it could be any time at all. The shutters stay mostly closed, only a slit of light cutting across the room like a pale blade. The candle beside the bed does more work than it should, its wax dripping slowly down the sides, its flame bending each time the air shifts. The young mother lies exhausted but not yet finished, her breath heavy, her body spent and still called to labor again. Her hair clings damp to her cheeks, her lips parting with each gasp. The room is warm now, almost stifling. thick with the smell of smoke, sweat, and herbs crushed between your fingers earlier. You wipe her brow with a cloth dipped in water gone tepid. The cloth cools her only for a moment before it warms against her skin. You replace it again and again, the rhythm steady, as if steadiness alone could carry her through. Her mother, older, sharp-eyed, with hands red from wringing, sits near the hearth, feeding the fire so it will not falter. Each stick she lays hisses faintly, the smoke curling stubborn before settling upward. She mutters her prayers, short and clipped, as though speed might bring them more force. Her voice weaves into the sounds of the room, the creak of the bed, the hiss of cloth, the shallow cries of the young woman. You move in the dim light with practiced patience. The basket lies open, its contents rearranged, half used, half waiting. Linen strips are stacked near the bed, folded once more out of habit, though you know they will not stay clean for long. The knife rests ready in its cloth. The jar of chamomile oil sits with its lid tilted, releasing its faint sweetness into the stale air. The scent clings to your hands, to the shawl draped across your shoulders, to the very air between your breaths. The young mother groans again, louder this time, the sound carrying through the room until it trembles at the shutters. You place your hand on her arm, firm and cool, and murmur words that are less words than tone. You give her something to follow, inhale with you, release with you, let the rhythm steady the storm. She tries, falters, tries again, and each attempt pulls her closer to where she needs to be. The candle flickers harder, smoke curling from the wick, as if the flame itself feels the weight of the room. Shadows crawl across the walls, your own shape bending long, the older woman's head bowed in prayer, the curve of the bed pressing outward. Each shadow seems louder than its owner, though all of you move softly. A knock sounds faintly at the door, tentative, a neighbor's curiosity pressing against the frame. The older woman ignores it, her eyes fixed on her daughter. You ignore it as well. Knocks are only echoes of what you already know. The neighbor will move on, satisfied enough with the silence or the muffled cries seeping through the shutters. The young woman cries out high and raw, clutching the blanket in both fists. You steady her again, your hands guiding, your voice shaping her breath. The blanket tears faintly at the seam, but she does not notice. The air grows heavier, the candle shorter, the room smaller. Time itself seems to crouch, waiting, holding its own breath. Then the moment shifts. Her body gathers all its strength into one last wave. You lean forward, hands ready, cloth ready, voice low and even. The older woman gasps, half in prayer, half in fear. The young mother bears down, teeth clenched, eyes closed tight, and with a final cry that seems to split the very air, the child arrives into your palms once more, slick, warm, crying with the sharp defiance of new breath. The cry fills the room, echoing off the shuttered walls, louder than the candle, louder than the fire, louder than any prayer. You wrap the child in cloth, pressing the linen firm around its small body. The mother collapses back onto the bed, her chest heaving, her hands trembling. Her eyes flutter open just enough to see what you hold, before they fall closed again in exhausted relief. The older woman crosses herself, then wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. Her prayers change shape now, not desperate but grateful, though no louder. She leans closer to the bed, whispering words that do not need to be heard, only spoken. You cut the cord cleanly, tie it, wrap the child tighter. The cries soften but do not stop, the sound steady, filling every corner of the small room. The fire crackles, the candle bends lower, the air holds the weight of labor past and life begun. You place the child gently on the mother's chest. Her hands, trembling, find their way to hold it, weak but certain. She breathes against its damp hair, whispering words too soft for anyone else to hear. The older woman strokes her daughter's hair, lips pressed tight, eyes bright with tears. You sit back, your hands folded, your basket waiting. Another candlelit delivery, another afternoon folded into the ledger of your silence. Outside, the sun lowers further, casting long slants of light across the shutters. Inside, the room stays dim, the new cry echoing in time with the candle's flame. Secrets passed through a cradle. The child lies now in a small wooden cradle, its curved legs creaking each time the mother's weak hand rocks it. The cradle itself is older than the infant inside, its wood polished by years of use, its joints loose enough to whisper with every motion. The sound is faint, steady, like the groan of a door that knows it must open whether it wishes to or not. The baby whimpers, breath-catching, fists tight. Its cry has softened from the sharpness of arrival into a smaller, steady protest at being here at all. You watch from your stool, hands folded across your lap, the basket at your feet, its lid open, its contents scattered from use. Herbs wilt in their bundle, cloths lie damp in a pile, the knife sleeps again in its sheath. The air is thick with a blend of smoke, chamomile and iron that even the faint breeze at the shutter cannot chase away. The young mother leans against her pillow, her face pale, her lips pressed thin from exhaustion. She rocks the cradle with a weak rhythm, her hand trembling as it pushes, pulls, pushes again. Her eyes are half closed, but her lips move, forming words too soft for most ears. You hear them anyway. They are not prayers. They are fragments, thoughts broken into sound, secrets pressed into the rhythm of rocking. She whispers names that are not her husband's. She whispers fears about what the neighbors will say. She whispers promises to her child, promises that begin strong and end trailing, unfinished, left for the heir to complete. The older woman, the mother's mother, leans close and hears enough. She presses her daughter's hand gently, whispering her own words, sharp with warning, soft with love. You cannot hear all of them, but you catch their edges quiet. Watch, never speak. They mix with the younger woman's murmurs, weaving into a hush that fills the small space. The cradle continues to creak, the sound rising and falling with each push. You hear more than the baby's whimper in that sound. You hear the weight of silence, the kind that must be taught early, before a child has words of its own. Secrets are passed, not only mouth to mouth, but cradle to ear, cradle to breath, cradle to sleep. The baby sighs, its tiny chest rising, falling, its fists unclenching only to curl again. The linen wrapped around it is clean, though already stained with the smell of birth, sweat, and milk. You reach forward once, adjusting the edge of the cloth, smoothing it against the baby's cheek. Your touch is light, but the child shifts, sensing even this small attention. Its whimper grows softer, its eyes remain closed. The husband returns then, stepping into the room with careful feet, carrying a pail of water that sloshes at the rim. His eyes flick to the cradle, then to the women, then to you. His face is unreadable, but you see the tension in his shoulders, the stiffness of his mouth. He sets the pail down with a dull thud and says nothing. The silence he carries is heavier than the water he fetched. The older woman rises, moves to the hearth, pours some of the water into a pot. She moves quickly, not looking at him, not looking at you. The younger woman continues rocking, her eyes fixed on the cradle, her lips still moving with words she no longer says aloud. The air presses close, the baby stirs, sighs again, and the cradle creaks on. You sit back, your hands folded, your face calm. The secrets in the room settle into you as they always do, pressed into silence, tucked into the folds of your memory like herbs bound in twine. You will not repeat them, yet you carry them. They weigh no less for being unspoken. The cradle rocks, the candle sputters, the air holds its breath. Outside, the lane fills with voices, children laughing, a cart rolling, a dog barking, but here, inside, the louder sound is the faint creak of wood and the softer weight of things never said. You watch until the baby's cries fall away into sleep, until the mother's hand slips from the cradle's edge, until the older woman's pot begins to hiss faintly over the hearth. Then you gather your cloths into a neater pile, cover your basket, and rise. The secrets remain where they began, but they cling to you now, woven into the quiet creak of the cradle, passed from one generation to the next in a room too small to contain them. You wash your hands in cold water. The basin waits where you set it, streaked with the thin reminders of what work looks like when it is honest. The water is not warm. It keeps the quiet chill of a bucket drawn before sunrise and left to think about itself. You dip your fingers, and the cold climbs your wrists with patient authority. It steals heat the way a thrifty house steals drafts, sealing everything tight without asking permission. You do not hurry. You turn your hands slowly, letting the red loosen and thread itself into the water, then drift apart again in pale ribbons. Your palms look older in this light, with lines deeper, knuckles roughened by cloth, and latches and doors that do not close square. The basin says nothing. It is used to listening. You have seen this darkening more often than you have seen clear water, and you will see it again. Habit nods to habit across the rim. You take up a scrap of linen and rub it across your nails, firm enough to persuade, gentle enough to mind the skin beneath. The cloth is thin and clean enough, though even clean things have a history if you look closely. With the squared corner of a small shaved twig kept for this task, you ease out what the water is too polite to argue with. The sound is small, linen on skin, wood against nail, a tidy rhythm that belongs to the end of work and the beginning of plainness. The room keeps its heaviness. Smoke hangs near the rafters. Chamomile clings to your sleeves and pretends that sweetness can outvote iron. The rust-salt air of labor has found the corners and made itself comfortable. It lives in the flattened straw by the bed, in the damp cloths piled for boiling, in the long, shallow grooves of the table where your knife rested. Houses forgive a great deal if you open their mouths to the weather. For now, this one holds everything you asked it to hold, and does not complain. You pour a little water from the jug, tilt the basin, and watch the cloudy memory thin. The red lifts to a faint rose, and then, stubborn as any story, falls back to duller cloud. You could step out and throw it into the ditch at once, but you finish the hands first. Better to make them plain again before asking the lane to share what the day has done. A cold bead slides from the jug to your wrist and runs into your sleeve as if it had business there. You let it have its way. The young mother sleeps, or something close to sleep, an emptied kind of quiet that arrives after long miles. Her mouth has forgotten to worry itself. One arm lies along the cradle as if to claim it without waking. Her breathing comes small and hitching, the sound of a purse with only a few coins left and no one counting them. The older woman sits watch by the hearth with a ladle like a scepter. She pretends not to see you washing, but she sees the way a fire sees, without blinking and without needing to speak. You raise each hand to the line of light that slips through the shutter slats, then lower it to the water again. A last thin stain holds at the cuticle, considers your insistence, and lets go like a stubborn thought finally talked into sense. Your wrists ache, a reasonable ache, the sort that minds its manners. You turn the cloth for a cleaner edge and press into the web between thumb and finger, the place where work always leaves a shadow. When the shadow fades, you let the cloth float like a tired leaf. Your hands feel new when the stains are gone, not young, never that, but new the way a clean cup is new no matter how old the clay. You lift them and let the water thread away in narrow slips of silver. It gathers at your wrists, hesitates, and falls. Small drops mark the floor with moments that will dry and be forgotten by everyone but the floor. You take a fresh corner of linen and simply hold it to your palms. Warmth returns slowly, stubborn and faithful as a well-behaved goat. You smell your hands, because you always do. Water and linen first. Beneath them a thin ghost of oil. Beneath that, iron you cannot quite wash from memory. And beneath even that, skin, ordinary and unremarkable. You flex each finger and study the places where work lives. A shallow cut on the index knuckle, a dry crescent near the thumb, a bruise the colour of a plum you would not buy. You nod to each mark like a clerk at a quiet ledger. Present, present, present. You tip the basin and carry it to the threshold, careful not to share more than the floor wishes to know. The young man stands there again with his cap and his careful silence, examining the latch as if latches have secrets. You step past him into the thin stripe of daylight. The lane takes your offering without ceremony. Water strikes dust and makes an honest patch of mud, then begins to disappear the way afternoons do. The smell lifts, less iron, more air. The ditch keeps its opinions to itself. Back inside, the room has learned a little patience from you and has let go of some weight. You open the shutter a finger's width more. Fresh air slips in, Not bold, not shy willing. It circles once, touches the corners, and decides to stay. The candle remembers its manners and stands straight. The older woman sighs the kind of sigh that believes itself private. You pretend it is. She stirs the pot as if smoothing its surface could smooth the day. Sometimes that is almost true. You fold the used cloths without studying them. Linen does not mind red memories. It minds being left in a heap. You give each strip its square of order, stack them near the door, and feel the small satisfaction of neatness doing what comfort cannot. Later there will be boiling and steam, and the quiet pride of cloth returning as pale as it is able. For now, order is enough. You wipe the knife, sleep it back into its sheath, retie the herb bundle, and set the oil jar straight. Small things stand where they are told and thank you by keeping still. The baby tests its voice with a single note. The young mother's hand answers without waking, a slow rock that calls the note good and asks for no more. The older woman watches both faces with the expression she used for rising dough this morning, hope wrapped in doubt, or doubt wrapped in hope. They trade coats so often it hardly matters. A fly inspects the jug, finds no sweetness, and leaves with proper restraint. The fire ticks as it considers its future. You look at your hands again, clean enough, cool enough, steady as they were at dawn, perhaps steadier for having been used. You press your palms together, not to pray, only to hear the bones greet each other. They do. A touch, a test, a complaint, an agreement. You slide them under your shawl a moment and let the wool give back what the water took. Warmth is an economy. You keep a little in reserve the way you keep spare twine and a quiet word. There is a thin pleasure in this part of the work, the plainness after the mess, the return to shape. The basin stands rinsed, the cloths are stacked, the table is bare and honest, the air a little less stubborn. Your hands are only hands again. You will carry them like this to the next door, where they will become unordinary in the same way, and then plain again. If comfort hides anywhere, it is in knowing water and time still have uses. You accept that quietly, which is the correct volume. You glance at the shutter slat. Outside, the light has turned the colour of weak tea. A cart complains beyond the fence. A child calls and is answered. The floor remembers your steps and offers back its old polite creak. The room, crowded earlier, is now merely full. That counts as improvement. You set the basin near the door for later scrubbing, when the older woman's breath and temper both permit chores. You wipe the table where your tools lay and leave it cleaner than you found it. You do this not to be praised, not to be invited back, but because order is the only conversation you allow yourself with another person's house. Houses answer with untroubled doorways and floors that do not argue. This one will remember. You rest a fingertip on the cradle's rim, not to move it, only to mark your leaving. The wood is smooth with years of similar touches. It keeps the prints of women's hands the way fields keep the prints of wind. The baby exhales and chooses a better shape for sleep. The mother keeps breathing. The older woman lifts her chin, reads your clean hands, and understands what needs understanding. Her small nod closes the room without shutting it. You take up your basket. The handle finds its old place in your palm and makes its small, familiar complaint. Your hands, washed in cold water, are ready for the next door, the next basin, the next patient argument with stain and air. You turn toward the threshold. The room lets you go without fuss. The road back to your cottage. You step out from the dim house into air that feels stretched, wider, cooler, as though the village itself sighs after holding its breath too long. The lane lies ahead in its plainness mud where water lingers, dust where sun has worked harder, stones that have been waiting for years to trip someone inattentive. You balance the basket against your hip and let your feet choose the easier line. They know it well enough. The sun leans lower now, less a coin above you than a pale disk brushed sideways across the sky. Its light strikes roofs at a slant, drawing long shadows from fences and wagons. Laundry still hangs between two houses, stiffer now, dried into shapes that flap without much energy. Smoke climbs thinner from chimneys, no longer the morning's sharp thread, but the soft, tired ribbon of embers keeping themselves useful. You pass a gate where goats have been pressing their noses all day. Their breath warms the wood, leaving faint damp circles. They blink at you, chewing in the slow rhythm of creatures who never hurry for anything except escape. Their smell drifts across the lane, sweet in its own sour way, clinging, insistent. You nod to them, because acknowledging goats is safer than ignoring them. Your shoes carry a film of dust, mixed with mud, grey-brown, clinging stubbornly to the edges. You do not try to shake it free. The dust belongs to you as much as you belong to it. Washing can wait until evening. The basket sways with your steps, heavier than it looks, lighter than it feels. Inside, the herbs shift with each movement, releasing their scent in small reminders. Rosemary sharp, sage dry, yarrow bitter. They mingle with the faint, sour tang of fish wrapped in cloth and the sweet crust of bread tucked against one side. The lane is not silent. No lane ever is. A door slams against its frame, the sound brittle in the cooling air. A dog barks twice, then gives up, satisfied with its own authority. Somewhere, a hammer strikes metal, sharp and ringing, echoing longer than needed. A child calls after another, the reply swallowed by distance. The village speaks without knowing you are listening, but you hear it all the same. You pass a group of hens scratching near a midden heap. Their feathers glow faintly golden in the slanting sun, though their cackling is rough, rasping, a chorus of complaint. One strays too close to your path and hops away, indignant, leaving a trail of dust. The smell of the heap hangs close, sour, sharp, unavoidable. You breathe through it without slowing. The road bends gently, bordered by low fences patched with branches, by hedges untrimmed, by stones that have not moved in decades. Beyond, you glimpse the fields. Stubble left from the last harvest, green shoots that will not be ready for weeks. A scarecrow leaning crooked, as if tired of its own work. The air here carries less smoke, more earth. Damp soil, old straw, faint sweetness of grass where cows have passed. You pause once by a trough, its water shallow and dark, flies circling lazily above. You dip your fingers not to drink, only to let the coolness rinse the heat from your skin. The water smells faintly of wood and moss. You wipe your hand against your shawl, the wetness darkening the fabric before vanishing. The path narrows, turning from lane to track, pressed closer by hedges that brush your sleeves. Twigs scratch softly against the wool, snagging then letting go. Birds chatter unseen within, their notes sharp, scattered, not melodic but insistent. They argue in their own language, their voices rising and falling with the breeze. Ahead, the roofs of the village thin, giving way to small plots of land where vegetables sit in careful rows. Beans twist upward along stakes, their leaves broad and heavy. Cabbages squat in neat circles, their outer leaves nibbled by insects. A scare of linen hangs from a pole, flapping weakly, meant more for form than effect. The smell here is greener, fresher, though still edged with the stubborn odour of manure worked into soil. Your steps slow as the road opens wider again. The basket weighs against your arm, pulling your shoulder into its usual ache. You adjust the handle, shift your grip, but the ache remains, familiar as the lines on your palm. The cottage waits farther ahead, roof low, walls leaning but intact, door stubborn but loyal. You do not look at it yet. You walk the rest of the road with the calm of someone who has walked it too many times to bother counting. Each step presses the earth a little flatter. Each breath carries herb and smoke a little farther. Each shadow lengthens until the road itself seems to grow tired. You walk anyway, because the road back to your cottage is not only a road. It is the return from one secret to the keeping of many, from houses filled with whispers to walls that hold only your own silence. The day lowers. Your shadow stretches longer than your patience. The path carries you home. You hang cloths to dry in the breeze. The cottage greets you without ceremony, its door leaning, its roof sagging, its walls carrying the memory of weather more faithfully than any prayer. Inside, the air is close with herbs, as always, but now it has acquired the heavier notes of the day. Iron, milk, sweat, smoke. You do not leave the basket on the table. You set it down by the basin, fold back its lid, and draw out the damp linen that must be washed before evening forgets you. The basin waits near the door. You fill it with water drawn earlier, now cool, now ready. The cloths sink into it without protest, their weight pulling them under, their red fading slowly into pink that clouds the surface. You scrub without haste, each stroke of your hands steady, pressing the fabric against itself, folding stain into water until the water claims it. The sound is muffled but constant, cloth dragging, water slapping, your breath matching both. When the cloths have given what they will, you carry them outside, arms full, dripping onto the packed earth of the threshold. The breeze meets you at once, cool, lifting the edges of the linen. The sky has shifted again, softer now, the light slanting lower, painting everything in tired gold. You pin the cloths to the lines strung between two poles, their wood grey with age, leaning inward like conspirators. Each strip of linen flutters and slaps in the wind, pale tongues speaking a language only the air understands. They hang heavy at first, clinging, then begin to lighten as the breeze runs through them. You watch them lift and sway, a rhythm you have seen more often than you have counted. They are not banners, though they resemble them. They announce no feast, no victory, only that the work has been done and will be done again. The smell rises as they dry, not clean, not yet, but less of what they were, more of what they might be again. Iron fades to damp earth, sweat to cool air. The breeze carries the scent across the yard, mingling with the sharpness of rosemary growing near your wall, the sweetness of wildflowers creeping in the ditch. You step back and study the line, cloth after cloth, pale, fluttering, twisting. The sight is ordinary, yet it fills the yard with its own gravity. Neighbours passing along the track will see it and say nothing. They will note it all the same. Each strip is a quiet page added to the story you never write, but always keep. Your hands, still damp, smell of water and herbs. You rub them against your shawl, leaving darker streaks that will fade as the evening cools. The basket waits by the door, lighter now, its corners empty, its weight reduced but never gone. You glance at it once, then turn back to the line. The cloths slap together in the wind, their edges fraying, their fibres softening with each cycle of stain and rinse. You know they will not last forever. Nothing does. A crow lands on the fence, tilting its head, studying you, then the cloths. It caws once, sharp, as if passing judgment, then hops down into the grass, uninterested. The sound lingers a moment, cutting the silence, then fades into the rustle of leaves. You sit on the low step of your cottage, elbows resting on your knees, watching the cloths lift and fall, lift and fall. The breeze combs through your hair, tugging gently, cooling the sweat that has dried along your temples. You breathe in the air, long and even, letting it fill your chest and leave again. The cloths follow the same rhythm, inhale, exhale, push, pull. The sun lowers further, dipping the tops of the roofs in orange, the shadows of the linen stretching long across the yard. The day edges toward evening, and your work, though never finished, has reached its pause, the cloths dry in the wind, telling their wordless story to no one in particular. You listen anyway, because listening is your habit, and because the breeze insists. Visitors at dusk bearing quiet faces. The sun has traded brightness for a thin ribbon of gold along the tops of the hedges, and your linen on the line has taken on that tired light, fluttering like pale tongues that have said enough for one day. You bring the nearest cloths inside, cool against your forearms, damp at the hems where the wind gave up trying. They fold the way they always do, thirds, then thirds again, stacked like obedient thoughts on the table by the hearth. The rosemary you left near the warm brick loosens its scent, a dry green whisper that meets the faint sweetness of clean wool and the smoke that never really leaves. You set a small pot near the coals, because dusk always brings water needing an excuse to boil. Footsteps approach the way polite weather crosses a field. You don't look out. People prefer a door that hasn't been watching. The first knock comes in two pieces, a question and then an apology for asking. You open to a neighbour whose morning wave you answered in the lane. Evening has arranged her face into calm, the kind of calm that stands between worry and the rest of the village. She holds a small basket that pretends to be a gift. 2 onions, a heel of bread, a pinch of salt wrapped in paper. Payment, excuse, courtesy, any of them will do. You step aside, and she crosses the threshold as if her shoes know the plank by heart. The cottage accepts her. The air keeps its mixture herbs, smoke, damp linen, 3 patient notes trying to sing together. She sits without invitation, which is correct. Invitations make remedies into ceremonies. You crush a leaf of sage between finger and thumb, bitter wakes in the steam. She warms her hands on the cup before her words agree to be words. It is nothing, she says. The name people give to the thing that has followed them all day. The steam listens while she speaks to it. A slice of bread cut too large for the last child, so the first can pretend he's full. A purse whose strings will not open without argument. A boy's cough that climbs into his sister's dreams. You ask how long, which is almost not a question at all, and the rest of the story walks out on its own. You give fennel, and the small counsel of warmth and patience. You show her how to cradle a bowl and breathe the steam, the way a window learns to clear itself on cold mornings. You tuck 2 leaves of thyme in the twist of paper for the girl's temper, which makes your visitor's mouth remember how to bend at the corners. When you mention payment, she pretends not to hear. When you don't, she pretends to remember. The heel of bread stays on the table, which is the right kind of thanks at this hour. She stands, says your name, in a way that fits in one breath, and leaves it behind her like a folded shawl. A pause follows, the size of a swallow of water. You bring 2 more strips from the line and drape them over chairbacks so the fire can finish what the wind began. The yard outside has shortened. It holds only what belongs to you now, 2 poles, a thin rope, a patch of trampled earth, a door that knows your hand. Bats cut the first small stitches across the sky. The pot mutters something agreeable and settles down to thinking. Another step stops just short of the sill. You hear breath gathered and folded, the usual rehearsal of courage. The second knock has learned from the first and arrives smaller. A young woman comes in with hair tied by haste, fingers worrying her sleeve until the threads remember being flax. She does not sit until you do. Even then she perches like a bird, deciding if the branch intends to hold. Her words circle the word she will not say, a lateness not yet counted aloud. A mother's eyes too loud at the table. A man who doesn't deserve a name in your room. You do not tip the hidden word toward her. Names have teeth when said at the wrong time. Instead you open your drawer and let safer things speak. Mint for the stomach that argues. Rue for restraint. Pennyroyal wrapped tight and placed on the table with your sternness set upon it like a hand. You talk about caution as if it were a kind of winter. You talk about counting days as if it were counting stitches, so a seam will not pull. You talk about breath and broth and rest. She listens the way someone listens to a road at night, watching for ruts, thankful for gravel. When she leaves, she takes nothing obvious, only a twist of paper hardly larger than a thumb, and a handful of instructions that sound like weather. She says no names. You ask for none. Her thanks is a nod that almost bows, and a glance at the line of linen, as if it too knew how to keep quiet. The third visitor removes his cap before knocking, hoping that respect might arrive first and soften the way for him. He is not ill, he is carrying someone else's scrape. He sits and studies your table the way a traveller studies a road that offers 2 bad choices. His story has hard corners. A sister-in-law whose sharpness makes the house shorter, a nephew who forgets too easily, a debt that has stopped pretending to be a misunderstanding. You widen the spaces between his sentences with silence, so nothing has to touch anything too quickly. Then you pour him a cup he will not drink, and give him a little bundle of yarrow, for tempers when they step on their own toes, and a smaller bundle of lavender for nights that climb back out of bed. He nods as if you have handed him a map that shows only one way, and that will have to do. He leaves a coin so worn it remembers other kings and sets it under the heel of bread without ceremony. You let it stay there until the door closes. The last of the linen comes in. The line outside is empty. The poles surprised to be relieved of duty. You close the door not against the night, but against further words. Small rooms keep secrets better than large ones. The latch answers with the quiet certainty of a sentence finished. Yet there is always one more step, the step that waits for the final candle. She arrives apologizing by tidying what is already tidy. Squares the folded cloth, rights the spoon, shifts the cup to the place cups prefer. Then she opens the cupboard in her chest and lets out what has been pacing since Michaelmas. A granddaughter's quick temper, a neighbour's quicker mouth, a promise from a man whose pockets hold nothing but more promises. You give her thread, the literal kind, because stockings mend easier than reputations, and sometimes a hand busy with mending stops a tongue from wearing holes. You add a pinch of balm for a knee that grows weather before the sky does, and a plain sentence for her pocket. Let the morning answer what the night cannot. When her step fades down the track, the cottage loosens its shoulders. The pot blinks, then grows sensible and still. The hearth settles its red into an order that looks like sleep learning how. You stack the cups, spread the herbs so the last steam can leave them, fold the final strip of linen as if the day were beginning again. Outside, the village murmurs along its seam, someone laughing too loudly for this hour, someone calling a name that returns without footsteps, a goat practicing the same opinion it held at noon. You sit on the step to cool your hand. The sky holds the undecided colour between blue and black, a thoughtful bruise that will heal without anyone's advice. Your palms rest open, empty in a way that feels almost wealthy. The night declines to put anything in them. Good. You go in, set the bolt with the familiar push, and let the walls gather the last of the whispers into their old lime and wood. Dusk has done what dusk always does here. It has turned onions into offerings, whispers into sentences that can be carried, fear into instructions, and awkward coins into bread that will be shared. The candle pinches lower and the room grows honest. The linen finishes breathing out. The rosemary on the brick becomes smoke and then nothing. Your pencil lies where you left it, keeping quiet like a promise you intend to keep. You leave it lying. The quiet is sturdy enough to lean on. And you do. Evening bread shared without speaking. The last of the visitors has gone, and the cottage breathes like a chest after a long climb, slow, steady, relieved. You set a loaf on the table, small, crust hard from the day's air. The knife slides through it without ceremony, the sound rough, scattering crumbs that cling to the wood. The smell is faint, yeasty still, though dulled by hours. You cut slices, not by measure, but by mood, laying them side by side as though arranging cards whose meanings are obvious and need no fortune teller. You pour water from the jug, cool, tasting faintly of earth and tin. It fills the clay cup with a hollow sound, then stills. No herbs, no sweetening, nothing to suggest celebration, only what the day asks for. Plain bread, plain water, enough. You eat slowly, chewing in time with the soft tick of the hearth as its last embers sigh. Each bite is dry, and so you sip, and the cycle repeats. Chew, swallow, sip, breathe. The body answers, not joyfully, but obediently. The crumbs scatter across the table. You leave them. They are not disorder, only evidence. Tomorrow they will brush aside easily enough. The crust scratches your gums, and you feel the sting of it, a small reminder that bread is labor, not softness. You tear another piece, smaller, and tuck it into your cheek. The rhythm comforts in its plainness. The room smells of dried linen and old wood. Chamomile still lingers faintly on your hands, though dulled by washing, its sweetness almost hidden beneath the iron scent you could not quite remove. Smoke rests heavy in the beams above, a permanent tenant that will not leave until the roof does. The air is thick, but honest. You eat alone, though not lonely. The silence has its own company, the shuffle of cloth on the line outside, the slow creak of timber cooling after the sun, the far-off bark of a dog that does not expect an answer. Each sound sits with you, like neighbours who know enough not to knock. When the bread is nearly gone, you pause, leaving the smallest piece. It is habit. Bread should end with something left, even if it is only a crust. You push it to the side of the plate, where it waits, a token for no one. A token for tomorrow. The cup empties, the water leaving no trace but a ring of damp at the bottom. You set it down with a dull sound and let it be. The light outside fades, slipping from gold to grey to the deeper shade that carries the first stars. You do not light another candle yet. The dimness is enough, the room softening around you, edges blurred, colours swallowed. The table, the bread, the cloth, the basket, all dissolve into shapes more felt than seen. You let your eyes rest in that half-dark, not closing, not straining, simply letting the world fade into quiet shapes. The last chew is slow, deliberate, the bread rough but final. You swallow, breathe, fold your hands in your lap. The meal is done, though it was never a meal so much as a pause, a ritual to remind yourself that bodies require tending as much as room. You sit for a while longer, listening to the linen flap against the rope outside, the sound like a low voice repeating itself to no one. Evening bread shared without speaking, evening water swallowed without toast. Enough to end the day, enough to begin the night. The silence in the cottage thickens, not heavy, not empty, simply whole. You bank the fire before sleep. The hearth has worked all day, and now it waits for your decision whether to leave it blazing into waste or to coax it into a quieter form. You choose the second, as you always do. With the iron poker, you nudge the wood, listening to the tired shift of coals. Sparks rise, red pinpricks darting upward, quick as startled flies, before vanishing into the beam smoke above. The smell is heavy but kind char, resin, the faint sweetness of wood that still remembers being tree. You rake the ash forward, soft grey mounds collapsing against one another. The sound is low, like paper sighing, like dry cloth folding itself. Your hand works steady, never striking, never loud. The fire answers by lowering its voice, settling into a glow instead of a shout. A log cracks sharply, a single protest, then splits at the seam. You push it deeper, burying it under ash. The glow softens to embers, red and orange, breathing in slow rhythm. They will last until dawn if covered properly. You spread a thin layer of ash across the top, careful, measured, smoothing it flat with the iron's edge. Ash keeps memory. It holds heat the way silence holds words, hidden, patient, waiting for the next breath to wake it. The room brightens briefly with the last flicker of flame, then dims, the light curling back into itself. Shadows lean closer. The herbs hanging from the rafters take on darker shapes, no longer leaves and stems, but outlines swaying like thoughts too old to name. The linen drying on the chairs breathes faintly, their edges stirring as the warmth leaves the air. You sit back on your heels, resting the poker against the wall. Your knees complain, but you let them. Complaints are part of the bargain of bones. You warm your palms a final time over the embers, feeling the low, steady heat rise into your skin. It is not sharp heat, not demanding it is the kind that lingers, the kind that clings to fingers and stays even when the hearth looks asleep. The cottage is quiet. Outside, the last voices of the village fade, one laugh too loud, one cart pulled home too late, a dog barking at nothing. The wind brushes past the shutter with a hollow tone, reminding the house that night has taken over. Inside, only the embers remain, pulsing, steady, their faint red reflections caught in the metal pot left beside the hearth. You wipe your hands on your shawl, not for dirt, but for habit. The smell of smoke threads through the wool, joining the older scents already woven there, chamomile, sage, iron, goat's milk, sweat. You do not mind. The shawl is meant to remember what you would rather not say aloud. You rise slowly, your shadow moving long across the wall. The hearth behind you breathes once more, its glow muted, its work done. The fire will keep itself through the night, waiting quietly for you to wake it again. You set the poker aside, you lower the lid of the pot, you step back, letting the room fold into its softer shape. Fire banked, day ended, silence ready. The cottage breathes differently at night. The walls creak in their slow voices, wood loosening after a day of holding strong. The thatch sighs when the wind leans into it, then quiets again, as if remembering its place. You sit by the table with your shawl pulled closer, the basket resting empty at your feet. The herbs on the wall are shadows now, their outlines longer, swaying faintly as though whispering to one another. You do not light another candle. The embers in the hearth give enough light, red glows, shifting, pulsing, just enough to show the shapes of the room. Darkness gathers in corners, not threatening, only patient, waiting for you to move slower. You obey. Your hands rest on your lap, palms open, fingers slightly curled. They no longer ache from washing, though they carry the quiet memory of it, as they always do. The smell of the room is layered and thick, smoke settled into rafters, herbs releasing their oils with each change of air, the faint sourness of damp linen, the ghost of bread crust from your meal. It is not unpleasant. It is simply what night smells like inside walls that have seen too much to pretend at cleanliness. You breathe it in and let it hold you, as though the cottage itself were a blanket. The sounds outside grow fewer. A cart rattles once more in the lane, its wheels dragging, then fades. A voice calls for a dog. The dog answers with a half-hearted bark. After that, nothing but the wind, threading itself between fences, brushing along shutters, carrying bits of straw and dust with it. The night closes in, but not with force, more like a door that leans until it finds its latch. You think of the cloths still drying, faintly damp on the chairs by the hearth. They will finish by morning. The line outside holds nothing now, only the wind. Your mind makes its inventory without effort. What was used today? What will need replacing? What must be gathered in the next market? It is not planning so much as counting breaths. The embers shift. A log collapses with a soft sigh, a puff of ash rising, curling upward before it disappears into the beam above. The glow brightens, then settles again. You lean forward to stir them slightly, not to wake them but to remind them they are watched. They answer with warmth against your palms. You draw your shawl closer, let it hold the heat in. The chair beneath you is worn smooth, the grain polished by years of use. It creaks when you shift, but the sound is low, content, not complaining. The table bears scratches, stains, marks of knives and cups, each one a record of meals, medicines, whispers. You rest your hand on it lightly, tracing a groove without thought. Wood remembers everything it has been asked to bear. Your eyes grow heavier. The room blurs, edges softening, shadows melting into each other. The herbs above sway faintly as the wind threads through the shutter cracks, their movement barely visible but clear in the way their smell sharpens for a moment. You let your gaze drift until even the herbs become shapes without names. The night deepens. The cottage holds steady. You remain, quiet, breathing in rhythm with the embers, waiting for sleep to find you in its own time. You lie down on the narrow bed, the straw-stuffed mattress sighing beneath your weight. The blanket is rough wool, heavy, smelling faintly of smoke and time from where it hung near the hearth. You pull it up to your shoulders, let its scratchiness remind you that comfort is not softness but steadiness. The pillow beneath your head is lumpy, feathers shifting whenever you move, but it holds your neck enough. That is all you ask. The window beside the bed is shuttered, though a thin crack of night slips through. It brings with it a draught cool, sharp, carrying the smell of damp earth and the faint tang of manure from the field. The air presses against your cheek, a reminder that outside continues whether you watch it or not. The shutters rattle once when the wind finds them, then rest again. The cottage speaks its small noises. The beams creak overhead, their weight shifting with the cool. The hearth ticks as embers collapse inward, their glow fading in patient stages. The rope of the linen line outside slaps faintly against the pole, each sound a reminder of cloth still swaying in the breeze. A mouse scurries along the wall, claws scratching in small, hurried rhythms before vanishing back into silence. You close your eyes, but your ears stay open. You hear the far-off low of a cow, restless in its stall. You hear an owl, its call soft, hollow, stretching across the fields. You hear the wind move through the hedges, a constant hush, the world's slow breathing. Each sound lays itself across you like an extra blanket, not heavy, not smothering, only enough to remind you that the night has its own work. The blanket warms with your body. You shift once, twice, then still, finding the place where mattress, pillow and bones agree to keep the peace. Your breath slows. The cottage grows quieter around it, until even the owl's call feels distant, absorbed by the wide fields beyond. You think of the day the houses you entered, the knocks, the whispers, the secrets folded into cradles and exchanged in coins. They linger not as pictures, not even as words, but as weight, the same weight that lies in your basket when empty, the same weight that presses into your hands even after washing. You do not name them. Night does not want names. Night wants only silence. The wind softens. The embers glow faintly, more shadow than light. Your eyes close fully now, lids heavy, lashes resting against your skin. The sounds of the cottage gather, hold, and soothe. Sleep does not arrive quickly, but it arrives steadily, like water finding its way into dry ground. Dreams come slowly. They arrive not as stories, but as textures. Linen folding, water dripping, herbs hanging heavy above. You drift in the half place between waking and sleep, where the mind replays what the hands have done all day. The rocking of cradles, the creak of floorboards, the hush of voices lowered so children will not hear. Each repeats, looping without urgency. The straw mattress rustles each time you shift, the feathers in your pillow whispering. You hear them even as your eyes stay shut, their faint sounds threading into your dreams. You dream of cloth flapping on the line, though the cloth is endless, row upon row, stretching into the sky. You dream of water in the basin, clouding and clearing, clouding again, as though it too cannot decide whether to rest. You dream of the knock on doors, always the same, always different, echoing along the lane until it becomes a kind of heartbeat. The dreams are not heavy, not frightening. They are repetitions, familiar as breathing. They carry no plot, no surprise, only the same actions slowed and stretched until they lose their edges. In them you are always working, but the work does not tire you. You walk, you wash, you fold, you hush, you breathe. The rhythm carries itself. The wind presses harder at the shutter for a moment, and the sound folds into your dream. It becomes a curtain moving, or the sway of herbs overhead. The owl calls again, and in your dream it is a woman's sigh, long and low. The mouse scurries, and in your dream it is a child's quick step across the floor. Your mind trades one sound for another, blurring them until the night itself is part of the work. Your breath grows slower still. The blanket is heavy, your body warmer beneath it, the rough wool scratching faintly at your neck. The air in the room cools, but you sink deeper, letting the weight of sleep press over you. Dreams carry you further from the cottage. Not far, never far, but enough. The cradle rocks, the herbs sway, the basket fills and empties. These are the shapes of your night. The night holds steady. Time passes without bells, without markers, only the slow cooling of the room and the deeper hush of the fields. The embers dim until only the faintest red glows remain, each one small as an eye half shut. The air thickens with chill, though the blanket holds enough warmth. You shift once in your sleep, pulling it higher across your shoulder, and the wool scratches comfort back into your skin. The shutters rattle again as the wind turns. The draft slips through, sharper now, brushing your cheek, stirring your hair. You do not wake. Your body adjusts, curling slightly, your hands folding together beneath your chin. Breath leaves your lips in a slow rhythm, steady as the ticking of a clock you do not own. Outside, the village sleeps too. No voices, no carts, no doors. Only the rustle of straw in yards, the quiet steps of animals shifting in stalls, the far-off cry of something wild carried on the breeze. The silence is not absolute, but it is whole. It covers the cottages, the fields, the hedges, the track leading away. It covers you. The house does not move much now. The beams creak less. The rafters settle fully. The linen on the chairs stirs only when the draft insists. The air inside grows cooler, but the smell of herbs remains, faint and steady. Chamomile, sage, rosemary, all blending into the fabric of the room, as though the house itself breathes them. You lie still, the mattress gives quietly beneath you, straw compressing in familiar patterns. The pillow holds your head, uneven but sufficient. The blanket presses its weight into your chest and legs. Sleep deepens, unbroken, calm. Night keeps its secrets. The cradle you left earlier rocks only in memory. The knocks you answered fade into silence. The coins in your basket wait quietly where you placed them. Nothing calls you now. The village is asleep, and so are you. Morning edges closer. The stars outside pale, faint points thinning in the sky. The horizon takes on its first soft grey, a colour more felt than seen. The wind eases, as if tired of its own persistence. The shutters no longer rattle, they breathe. Inside, the room remains dark but not as deep, the shadows loosening their grip. You stir slightly, shifting on the mattress, pulling the blanket higher though the chill is less. Your breath continues its rhythm, long and low, carrying sleep further even as light begins to return. The cottage holds you steady, its beams silent, its hearth cold but ready. The linen on the chairs is dry now, edges stiff, carrying the smell of smoke and air. The basket by the table waits, empty of work for the moment, though never truly empty. The herbs on the wall hang still, their shapes clearer as the faint grey finds them. The air smells the same smoke, wool, earth, but softer, as though morning has already begun to clean it. Outside, the first rooster stirs, its call breaking the night's hush. It is not loud yet, not insistent, only a single note testing the air. A dog answers with a bark that fades quickly, more yawn than warning. The world prepares to rise, but it waits a little longer, stretching itself slowly. You do not wake yet. Your body lingers in its warmth, eyes closed, breath steady. Morning will come soon enough, bringing its knocks, its whispers, its secrets folded into cloth. For now, you remain, the weight of sleep pressing gently, the room quiet, the air cool. The day waits at the edge, but the night holds you still. The night loosens its hold, and the cottage seems to exhale with you. The straw mattress has shaped itself around your weight, the wool blanket pressed close, the pillow uneven but patient. The room is quiet, quiet in the way that holds you steady, not empty, not hollow, only full of slow air. The embers in the hearth are no more than ash now, soft grey, still warm beneath their surface. They wait without hurry for the touch that will wake them when the sun is higher. The linen hangs motionless, dry, its fibres stiffened from air and smoke. The herbs above no longer sway, they are shadows only, their scents faint but lasting, woven into the beams. Outside, the world stirs in fragments. A rooster calls again, louder now, joined by another farther away. A cart's wheel creaks as someone too early sets out along the lane. The hedges rustle faintly where the wind brushes them, not sharp, not cold, only steady. The village has not risen fully, but it is stretching, yawning, remembering itself. You breathe in, deep, slow, even. The air is cooler, but not biting. It fills your chest with the same rhythm you have carried all day, measured, patient, unbroken. You let it out again, longer, softer, as though releasing everything the day left in your hands. Your eyes stay closed. The blanket keeps its weight, the mattress its cradle. Nothing calls you yet. Morning will come, with its knocks, its whispers, its doors that open to stories. But here, in this half place between sleep and waking, you are still held. The silence of the cottage is complete, and it carries you slowly, gently into rest. End of script. Sweet dreams.